Chapter 762. Youth, lost again, extended lifespan, and abruptly shortened. Falling from hope to the depths of despair, this was the cruelest blow. His heart was filled with despair, anxiety, and fear. His heart was about to shatter. You are an expert with unfathomable magic power. You must have a way to help us, right? At this moment, everyone, including Zhou Zixuan, knelt down in front of Jiang Tian. Tears and snot flowed down their faces as they kowtowed like chickens pecking rice, begging Jiang Tian for help. Every time Zhou Zixuan spoke, a few of his teeth would fly out. After a few sentences, all of his teeth had fallen out. "Oh, now you realize that I'm an expert? Why didn't you listen when I told you before?" Jiang Tian clasped his hands behind his back. His eyes were filled with disdain and mockery. "I told you long ago that I wouldn't let you in. But everyone turned a deaf ear to my words. You think I'm scaring you? If I wanted to monopolize these resources, I could just kill all of you. Why would I need to scare you? Ridiculous." Finally, his gaze fell on Anfia as he sneered. "Moreover, you and your father tried to kill me. What reason do I have to save you?" Slap. These words were like an invisible slap on Anfia's face. Her face immediately turned red, as if blood was about to drip out. At this moment, everyone, including Anfia and Zhou Zixuan, felt a deep sense of regret. It was too late for regrets. Yes, Jiang Tian had warned them that this place was dangerous and not to enter. But none of them took it to heart. They only thought that Jiang Tian was scaring them. They were disdainful and insisted on doing what they wanted. If they had listened to Jiang Tian at that time, they would not have lost their lifespan and died an unnatural death later on. They would not have ended up in such a miserable state. What was even more despicable was that, after entering the sword tomb, they accidentally discovered that this place would imprison one's cultivation. Berezov and Anfia actually turned hostile, threatened and humiliated Jiang Tian, and even forced Jiang Tian to kneel. After all, Jiang Tian had once killed the snow devil and saved Anfia's life. Such actions were no different from being ungrateful and repaying kindness with ingratitude. Now, what reason did Jiang Tian have to save them? "Master Kong, forgive me. Save me. I don't want to die." Anfia began to cry in despair. She was as mournful as a malicious spirit, but her cries instantly turned into screams and wails. "It hurts. It hurts so much." This was because she felt as if she was being burned by a raging fire. Her entire body was in intense pain, and she was rolling on the ground in pain. Moreover, she was aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. Her youth and vitality were cruelly eroded and stripped away by the accelerated time. In just a few minutes, Anfia, who was full of youthful energy, had turned into an old lady with a head full of white hair. "Master Kong, I know I was wrong. Save me. I beg you, I'm willing to give you all of my assets." She lay on the ground, moaning hopelessly and helplessly, wailing and weeping. Aging prematurely and having a head full of white hair was an unbearable sorrow and blow. In her 20s, she was in the prime of her youth. In the blink of an eye, her hair had turned white, and her wrinkles had piled up. Her eyes had also lost their luster, becoming turbid and dull. "Let's go. Let's continue forward." Jiang Tian glanced at her indifferently before turning and walking into the depths of the sword catacomb. As for Zhou Zixuan, Jiang Tian couldn't be bothered to care about him. Jiang Tian had originally wanted Zhou Zixuan and Li Jiuyo to live because he felt that these two people had powerful cultivations. When the world changed in the future, they might become the pillars of Huaxia. But ever since they entered the sword catacomb, their selfishness, cruelty, and narrow-mindedness were all exposed. Since they couldn't take on great responsibilities, then he would let them fend for themselves. Sob, sob, sob. Is this our fate? Zhou Zixuan glanced at the corpses all over the ground, fumbled for his fallen teeth and hair on the ground, and hugged his rapidly aging body. Sorrow came from his heart, mixed with regret, and he began to cry loudly. At this time, Jiang Tian had already led Wolf King Alexander and Situ Shao into the depths of the sword catacomb. Suddenly, a shocking scene came into view. They saw thousands of swords inserted into a mountain peak, extending for more than 10 miles. Each of them was a few meters long, like a forest of swords, completely blocking the way. Each of them had an extraordinary origin. Even after thousands of years of erosion, they were still sharp and cold. There were even Dharma power fluctuations that were comparable to Dharma swords. Big Dipper sword formation. Feeling the suppression of the magic power, Situ Xiao found it difficult to breathe. His expression turned serious as he said, "Legend has it that these swords were obtained by the immortal of 9 swords when he swept across the 9 heavens and 10 lands, swept across all the major sects, and suppressed many sword immortals and swordsmen." His eyes became more and more fearful as he said in a low voice, "These swords were carefully arranged into a peerless sword formation according to the green sack star scripture. 100 years ago, I came with a few immortal state warriors to explore the secret, and 2 of them died here." Hearing this, the Wolf King cried out in alarm. "The person who set up this formation is truly cunning. The sword formation here is already terrifying enough. Now, with the addition of a great forbidden formation and a time acceleration formation, who would be able to resist such a powerful formation? Humph! You want to stop me with a few pieces of scrap metal? In your dreams?" Jiang Tian sneered. A gust of wind stirred up and enveloped Wolf King and Situ Xiao completely. As if they were infuriated by Jiang Tian's disdain, all the swords suddenly started trembling madly, and they emitted sorrowful cries of praise. Clang, clang, clang. Countless swords leaped up from the rocks and flew towards Jiang Tian and his people from all directions. This sword formation was more than 10 miles wide and was arranged according to the Big Dipper Xian formation. It was based on the green sack star scripture and the earth veins and star energy to form a peerless killing formation. Numerous treasured swords flickered with sharp cold light, whistling madly like missiles, crazily encircling and suppressing him. There were too many swords, thousands of them, and they covered the sky. Even if an immortal state warrior or a mortal deity were there, they would be cut into pieces. "Master Kong, watch out." Situ Xiao was also frightened by the sight of so many sharp swords. "Don't worry." Jiang Tian squinted his eyes. Divine light exploded as he threw out a punch. Boom! For this punch, Jiang Tian pushed his cultivation to the limit. The gunmetal divine fist transformed into a volcanic eruption-like fist energy that shot out horizontally. Clang! A total of 500 to 600 swords were shattered by Jiang Tian's punch, turning into countless metal shards that shot out in all directions. When Situ Xiao saw this, he was dumbfounded. Master Kang's power was unprecedented. Even the 9-sword immortal might not be able to catch up with him. One of these swords could kill a transcendent grandmaster or even an immortal state warrior. And yet, Jiang Tian had destroyed hundreds of them with just one punch. How powerful was that? But this sword formation was really too big. The peerless swords with a radius of more than 10 miles immediately pierced towards Jiang Tiandong even more crazily. This time, the swords were connected head to tail. They were densely packed and stretched for hundreds of meters. They looked like a giant dragon. The treasured sword was like a torrent of steel that lay across the sky. Clanging sounds rang out as it emitted waves of sonic booms and strange howls that caused one's heart to palpitate. Break! 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 Facing this, Jiang Tian's expression remained calm as he repeatedly punched out with his fists. After reaching the 8th level of qi refinement in ancient Wudong, Jiang Tian's punches had the power to destroy cities and mountains. Every time he punched, the swords within a few dozen meters would be destroyed. Punch after punch, the torrent of treasured swords was instantly smashed into pieces. Enough. In the end, Jiang Tian patted the sky-swallowing demon gourd on his waist. Immediately, Xiao Hei's flying sword drew out a sharp and dazzling sword light that was about 500 meters long, forcefully slashing the mountain peak into 2. Rumble! Thunderous booms rang out one after another as the entire mountain trembled violently. Countless streams of earth vein qi gushed out like fire beacons, shooting straight into the sky. Earth-shattering explosions occurred in some places, sending mountain rocks flying and shooting into the heavens. Jiang Tian's sword had cut dozens of meters deep into the array base deep inside the mountain. The surging Dharma power inside the array base exploded uncontrollably. When the array base was destroyed, the swords fell to the ground like dead snakes and lay motionless. The sword array had been completely destroyed. Master Kang's sword penetrated the mountain and penetrated dozens of meters deep. It's comparable to an underground missile. Wolf King wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said with admiration, "The sword array was really dangerous." He had been invincible all his life, but at this time he was so scared that he was drenched in cold sweat. If Jiang Tian was not there, even if his cultivation was not sealed, he would not be able to withstand it. "Let's go." Jiang Tian's expression was very calm. It was like he had just done something insignificant. He led the two of them into the air and charged towards the palace. "Master Kang, be careful. There is a 5 elements array ahead." Situ Shao reminded him again with fear in his eyes. "I was already a half-step human immortal at that time, but I was no match for him. And a human immortal died at that time. Our group stopped here and didn't enter the palace." The immortal of 9 swords was a sky immortal. He had set up the 5 elements array himself, and it was so powerful and dangerous that it could kill earth immortals like killing ants. "Ha, don't worry. He can't even hurt us. He's just showing off in front of an expert." Jiang Tian sneered. By then, he had already sensed the 5 elements array that covered a mile. Yiwood, Ding Fire, Kuei Water, Kun Earth, and Xen Metal. These 5 types of energy of heaven and earth were mutually reinforcing and counteracting each other. They cycled endlessly, as if they were a small world. Jiang Tian directly propped up a Gingjin protective shield with a radius of 3 meters, firmly covering the 3 of them, and swaggered into the formation. In the south, the energy of Ding Fire was suddenly ignited. The fire rose dozens of meters into the sky and danced like a fiery demon. The energy of Ding Fire swept over like a 10-meter-long dragon and instantly enveloped Jiang Tian and the others. It was thousands of degrees hot and no one under the immortal state could withstand it. But Jiang Tian's true essence shield only trembled slightly and didn't even ripple. It easily blocked the energy of Ding Fire. The 5 elements array was a half-spiritual array and had some sensing power. Since the attack was ineffective, the array seemed to be enraged. Thousands of rays of light bloomed and shot into the sky. The attack became more fierce and all kinds of energy burst out toward the 3 of them. Chapter 763. Bang, bang. But when the wood thorns met Jiang Tian's true essence shield, they immediately shattered. Countless wood chips and fibers flew in the air as energy exploded. "Rise." Jiang Tian ignored it and raised his hand to the west. That was where the element metal energy was located. Jiang Tian's element metal divine body was the supreme body of the metal element in the cultivation world. It could control all the metal energy in the world. Suddenly, countless huge golden cauldrons, gold plates, talismans and other element metal array materials rolled into Jiang Tian's hand like a long river. They instantly turned into liquid metal and flowed down. The element metal array was instantly destroyed. The 5 elements coexisted with each other. After the array was destroyed, the other arrays immediately stopped operating and the light that shot into the sky gradually dimmed. "Break!" Jiang Tian stomped his feet. Boom! In the earth-shattering sound, smoke and dust billowed and the earth trembled. Huge pits were formed. Countless array materials were trampled and scattered in all directions. The entire 5 elements array was completely destroyed. It was destroyed just like that? Seeing this, Situ Shao was dumbfounded as if he had seen a god. He was in awe of Jiang Tian and couldn't be more impressed. The Sword Tomb was one of the most dangerous places in the world. For hundreds of years, the number of immortal state warriors and human immortals who had died here was uncountable. The 5 elements array was the last obstacle to entering the main hall of the immortal of 9 swords. It was also the most dangerous array in the Sword Tomb. But it was easily destroyed by Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian's strength could be said to be unprecedented. He looked up to him in awe. As for the Wolf King, there was no need to talk about him. He had also explored the sword tomb several times, but he had only wandered around the periphery and had never even gotten close to the 5 elements array. Soon after, under the escort of the 2 of them, Jiang Tian strode to the front of the hall. Sword Deity Palace. The 3 large words were written with iron hooks and silver strokes. They had an extraordinary aura. There was a faint, intimidating aura of a saber pressing over, which was a ghastly sight. This should be the dojo of the immortal 9 swords, and also the place where he died. Walking into the hall, one could see that the furnishings inside were very simple. There were some stone tables and chairs, as well as a few bookshelves with a few books on them. Moreover, there were vines wriggling in from the outside, wrapping around the bookshelves. They were full of vitality and green. Sigh, it's been too long. The writing has been ruined. Situ Xiao rushed forward excitedly and flipped through the books, but he couldn't help but feel disappointed. This was the dojo of a celestial immortal. The manuals left behind might very well surpass his sword kinesis technique. Unfortunately, these books had already decayed and the words were blurred. It was impossible to read them. Jiang Tian naturally didn't care about these cultivation methods. He passed through the main hall and arrived at a small quiet room at the back. This quiet room was very inconspicuous. Situ Xiao and the Wolf King were very puzzled. What was Master Kong doing here? However, Jiang Tian discovered that the vines and plants seemed to be growing towards this place like sunflowers. It was very likely that this was the location of the spirit vein. The spiritual qi here is so abundant. There are great herbs growing out of thin air and magical flowers blooming. After Situ Xiao and the Wolf King followed, they immediately exclaimed repeatedly, and their eyeballs almost popped out. In this quiet room, countless spiritual herbs and great herbs floated without roots and grew crazily. They were green and full of vitality. They emitted tens of thousands of rays of light and flowed with thousands of auspicious colors. These great herbs seemed to have spirituality as they floated and danced in the air. As soon as they saw Jiang Tian and the others enter, they squeaked and rustled. Some of the great herbs almost took human form. They opened their roots and ran like humans. Some waved their large leaves like butterflies, wanting to fly away. All things have spirits. These spiritual herbs have absorbed the aura of the spirit vein and are about to become spirits. Jiang Tian sighed leisurely. Xiao Hei's flying sword slashed out and cut down many spiritual herbs and herbs. He put them into his storage ring as backup for alchemy. To be able to produce so many spiritual herbs and great herbs, there must be a large spirit vein. But where is the source of the spiritual qi? Where's the spirit vein? Situ Xiao asked in surprise. He felt around and searched everywhere with his spiritual power, but he found nothing. There were many rumors about the hidden treasures of the sword tomb. However, the most attractive thing was that there was a super spirit vein here, which was greatly beneficial to one's cultivation. Don't worry. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense, then raised his right hand and drew talismans in the air. Numerous gung gold talisman markings formed a talisman that glowed with golden light, and with a tap of Jiang Tian's finger, it struck the ground. The talismans spread out on the green bricks on the ground. Suddenly, there was a dazzling brilliance, illuminating the entire quiet room. Then, the broken talismans flowed everywhere like mercury and golden water, filling the gaps between the square bricks. The golden water from the talismans was like a small stream, but it flowed extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it filled all the gaps between the bricks. Suddenly, the bricks seemed to be alive. They folded, rolled, stacked, contracted, and nested. It could be said that there were thousands of changes in an instant, which was dazzling. In an instant, these green bricks suddenly formed a pool with a radius of more than 3 meters. This is a concealment formation. This concealment formation is too ingenious. Situ Xiao and the Wolf King were shocked and dumbfounded. Previously, when they knocked on the ground to check, they only felt that these square bricks were no different from normal. The Wolf King even waved its big claws and pried out 2 pieces. It saw that there was only black soil and stone underneath, and there was nothing unusual. If Jiang Tian was not here, even if they came here, They would not be able to detect and break this concealment formation. They could only return empty-handed. The pool was connected to a passage. It was bottomless and dark, as if it led to hell. All of a sudden, a milky white liquid gushed out of the tunnel. The milky white water splashed everywhere, like pearls of various sizes falling on a jade plate. In the blink of an eye, the pool was filled to the brim like milk. This is spirit chi? Spirit liquid? But how can there be such a turbid spirit liquid in the world? Sidu Shao could not believe it. Spirit chi of heaven and earth had many levels. The regular spirit chi was in a gaseous state. The denser and purer spirit chi turned into mist or rain, which was generally called spirit liquid. However, he had never seen such a spirit liquid. There seemed to be a lot of flocculence floating in it, and it was very turbid. Spirit marrow. Jiang Tian's heart raced. Spirit marrow was the essence of spirit liquid. Usually, it was an underground spirit spring. After being compressed by mountains and geological changes, it formed a solid liquid mixture. Generally speaking, spirit marrow had 100 times more spirit chi than the spirit spring of the same volume. It was rare even in the cultivation world outside the planet. Who would have thought that it would appear on Earth? But then again, it was not surprising. On Earth, even if it was a dead planet, even if it lacked spirit chi and the probability of a spirit marrow vein appearing was very low, it was still more than 500 million square kilometers. It was quite possible to have 1 or 2 spirit marrow veins. The Immortal of 9 Swords was rumored to be a sky immortal, equivalent to a third-level foundation establishment cultivator. His senses and speed were comparable to Jiang Tian's. According to historical records, he had lived on Earth for a few hundred years. Wouldn't he have turned the planet upside down? He would definitely find it. At this time, Jiang Tian was overjoyed. The spirit vein in the ancient Wudong sect and the dragon marrow spirit vein in the Shuangqing villa in fragrant hills of Yanjin were far inferior to this spirit marrow vein. However, both of those spirit veins had helped Jiang Tian make breakthroughs once. Thinking about it, this 10 times purer spirit marrow meridian, together with the pills that Jiang Tian concocted, could definitely push Jiang Tian to Chi Disciple Level 9, or even break through to Foundation Establishment. Jiang Tian was about to start making pills and cultivating. Suddenly, a voice sounded. "Young man, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Everyone was startled. They turned around and saw a figure appear at the door. The person was dressed like a Taoist, wearing a feather robe and a high crown. He looked very lively and lifelike. "Oh my God, is the Immortal of 9 Swords still alive?" Wolf King was startled when he saw that. Situ Zhao's body was also tense and his eyes were filled with fear. There seemed to be endless time flowing in his eyes, the rise and fall of countless civilizations and the twinkling stars. It was as if people would fall into his eyes and be unable to extricate themselves. The array left by the Immortal of 9 Swords had killed a mortal deity before. Who would be able to resist him? No. This is the remnant soul of the Immortal of 9 Swords. To be more precise, it's an illusion created by combining part of his remnant soul with the array. It's like a holographic projection. Jiang Tian's face was calm as he smiled. "I see. It's so real. It's amazing." Wolf King immediately felt relieved and found it interesting, so he went forward and pulled Qin Fan's beard. "Don't move." Jiang Tian wanted to stop him, but he didn't have time. He could only shake his head. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The Immortal of 9 Swords casually waved his hand and sent the Wolf King flying out of the window more than 10 meters away. "Young man, how dare you be disrespectful to me? Do you want to die?" The Immortal of 9 Swords raised his hand and pointed, shouting majestically. "Master Kong, isn't this a holographic projection? How can it hit me?" Wolf King's chest was in great pain and his waist was almost broken. He screamed and asked, "This is called realistic illusion. It has intelligence and energy waves. Why did you do that?" Jiang Tian heaved a sigh. "Master Kong, you're wrong. It should be called artificial intelligence, not holographic projection." Wolf King rubbed his chest and got up. Then the Immortal of 9 Swords said kindly, "Kid, You were able to break through the layers of illusions and defeat the layers of restrictions to arrive here. It can be seen that your natural talent, willpower, and comprehension ability aren't bad, and you can inherit my mantle. Kneel and kowtow to me and beg me to take you as my disciple. Kneel? Do you know who I am? You're asking me to kneel? Jiang Tian sneered. I'm a foundation establishment cultivator from the ruins of deity. Aren't you afraid of me? The immortal of 9 swords shouted. At this moment he was glaring coldly at Situ Shao. Even Situ Shao could feel an enormous pressure. Of course I am. Jiang Tian smacked on the head. He slapped the immortal of 9 swords' head. This illusion instantly turned into billions of light spots and was shattered by Jiang Tian's slap. The azure light spots emitted a soft light like fireflies and floated in the air. A moment later, the light spots moved and the illusion was formed again. But at this time, the illusion kept flickering, appearing and disappearing in a translucent state. Its aura was obviously much weaker than before. The illusionary figure pointed at Jiang Tian and shouted angrily. I am a guest from the ruins of immortality. I am at the 3rd level of foundation establishment. I can break mountains with a single sword and destroy cities with a single finger. I once killed the sacred battle ape, Qi Ao Sheng, and the evil dragon, Ao Bao. I am invincible in this world. Zhang Sanfeng and Huang Chao's martial arts and sword techniques were all taught by me. How dare you hit me? You must have a death wish. Chapter 764. What's wrong with hitting you? Give me your cultivation method. Jiang Tian slapped him again. Smith. The illusion of the deity of 9 swords shattered again. A moment later, the illusion condensed again, but this time, the face of the illusion was full of fear, and it said, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Judging by your aura, you're a cultivator, not a martial artist or sorcerer. He swung his sleeves and became arrogant again. You must also be from the ruins of immortality. You must have been punished and exiled. How about we call each other brothers? Do you think you're worthy of being my brother? Jiang Tian sneered and slapped him again. Smith. The deity of 9 swords shattered again. When he reformed, he was no longer arrogant. He bowed deeply and said, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. I didn't expect your excellency's cultivation to be so powerful. I apologize for my lack of respect. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll tell you everything I know. What's the ruins of immortality? Where is it? How do I get there? The moment Jiang Tian said this, Situ Shao hurriedly perked up his ears to listen. He had also heard about the secrets of the ruins of immortality and was very interested. The ruins of immortality was born from the spirit chi of ancient earth. There were billions of territories, thousands of races, and countless powerful cultivators. The deity of 9 swords smiled bitterly and said, I was a disciple of the outer court. I was originally an outer sect elder of the heavenly court sect. Because I accidentally broke the Lord of the heavenly court's colored glaze cup and violated the heavenly law, I was expelled from the heavenly court and sent to this world through the dimensional passage. I killed monsters and wiped out demons on earth, hoping to make up for my mistakes and get the sect master's permission to return to the heavenly court in the ruins of immortality. I made 9 flying swords and was invincible in the 9 heavens and 10 lands. I made outstanding achievements. He talked about his great achievements all those years ago, and his saliva splattered everywhere while his gaze was arrogant and proud. Jiang Tian couldn't stop him. It seemed that the deity of 9 swords was also a braggart when he was alive. In the end, he changed the topic. But unexpectedly, the southern heavenly gates formation collapsed. The bridge of immortals was broken, and the path to heaven was damaged. The world became like a cage. This one cannot return to the ruins of immortality. My lifespan is nearing its end, and I will perish here. What a pity! As he finished speaking, he stomped his feet and pounded his chest while tears and mucus flowed down his face. Every single word he spoke was filled with grief, and it caused Situ Shao to be deeply moved. So the heavenly court really does exist. It's in the ruins of immortality. The southern heavenly gate is actually a teleportation formation. Jiang Tian had a slight understanding in his heart. The southern gate of heaven should be a teleportation array left behind by the overlords of the ancient Earth. However, Earth had been in decline for too long, and the teleportation array had been eroded by wind and rain for tens of thousands of years and had long been destroyed. Even with the Nine Swords Immortal's abilities, he was unable to repair it. Jiang Tian asked about a few more secrets of the ruins of immortality, including the location of the southern heavenly gate. However, the illusion of the immortal Nine Swords did not respond. Instead, it gradually dimmed. In fact, the Wolf King was right. It would be more appropriate to call this illusion an artificial intelligence in the cultivation world. The questions that it could answer were all set in advance. If there were no set answers, asking questions would be useless. Now, show me the ultimate skill that you're most proficient in, Jiang Tian said in a commanding tone, not wasting any time. I cultivate the 5 elements heaven-seizing Dharma sword, which was once invincible in the world. Now I'll teach it to you. You must remember it in your heart. Nothing is as big as heaven and earth, but it has its limits. Yin and Yang are limited in the vastness of the heavens. Yin and Yang are limited in the vastness of the earth. A sword appeared in the illusion's hand out of thin air. He explained as he demonstrated the sword technique. Sometimes, the tip of his sword pointed upward like a golden lotus. Sometimes, sword light bloomed like rain-hitting banana leaves. Sometimes, sword flowers bloomed like flowers falling from the sky. The tip of the sword stabbed forward, and the sword light was biting cold, like a thunderbolt striking down. There's actually such a magical sword technique in the world. Situ Zhao's heart was immediately shaken. His eyes were burning, and his breathing quickened. He was like a money grubber who saw gold ingots, or a pervert who saw a stunning beauty. This sword technique was infinitely profound, far surpassing the sword kinesis technique he had obtained at the Jialing River. After all, this was a technique from the ruins of immortality, a true sword immortal technique that could lead one to the celestial immortal realm. Once word got out, many experts above the immortal state would probably beat their brains out. However, Situ Zhao knew that this sword technique should belong to Jiang Tian. After all, Jiang Tian was the one who opened the sword tomb, so he should avoid it. Master Kong, I'll go outside to enjoy the scenery. Situ Zhao made up his mind and bowed deeply with his fists clasped. Then he reluctantly turned around and walked out of the door. Situ, learn this sword technique well. Jiang Tian hurriedly raised his hand to stop him. He also used his spiritual power to imprint the essence of the sword technique into Situ Zhao's mind. Master Kong, no master actually taught me this sword technique? In an instant, Situ Zhao was so moved that tears filled his eyes. He couldn't believe it. It's just a third-rate sword technique. What's so great about it? Jiang Tian snorted disdainfully. Such a sword technique, to Situ Zhao and the other Earth powerhouses, was definitely priceless and regarded as a treasure. However, it was nothing in Jiang Tian's eyes. He could write a few hundred of them. Little Xiao will never forget Master's great kindness. From today onwards, I will definitely serve Grandmaster Jiang loyally and treat him as my second parent. Situ Zhao was moved to tears as he knelt down in front of Jiang Tian. He prostrated himself on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. This is nothing. This sword technique can be the foundation of your cultivation. After you have laid the foundation, I will teach you the real divine art. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and said, From now on, you will be the most senior disciple of the Tai Ching sect, second only to me. The Hong sect was more powerful than the Big Circle. They had many powerful overlords and were extremely influential. If the Hong sect submitted to the Jiang family, Jiang Tianqing's faction would become the most powerful faction in the world, and no other faction would be able to compete with them. Yes, master. No, sect leader. Situ Zhao was sincerely convinced, and he was even unable to contain his joy. Jiang Tian was the reincarnation of an immortal. He had lived for a very long time in his past life, and his cultivation was unfathomable. To be able to become Jiang Tian's most senior disciple meant that he was an immortal. With Jiang Tian's guidance, he would be able to ascend to the immortal ruins and reach a higher level of life. This was a blessing that he had accumulated over several lifetimes. He no longer had to worry about his lifespan coming to an end, not knowing when he would die. After a while, Jiang Tian imprinted the 5 elements heaven-seizing Dharma sword technique into Situ Zhao's mind. The divine soul of the 9 swords deity had also run out of energy. Suddenly, it collapsed and disappeared as if it had never existed. Jiang Tian was not going to leave empty-handed. He searched the sword deity's palace for a while and took everything he could find. Finally, Jiang Tian sat cross-legged in the middle of the spirit pith and spirit vein. He waved his sleeves and his eyes lit up. "Situ, Wolf King, I need you to help me with the alchemy. I need to go into seclusion for a while." Jiang Tian was going to use the time acceleration array. Others thought that they could trap him to death, but in Jiang Tian's eyes, it was extremely useful, a great opportunity bestowed by the heavens. The divine body of gung metal was the most powerful body constitution in the cultivation realm. It was 10 times stronger and 100 times purer than the average body constitution. However, it was also one of the most difficult body constitutions to cultivate. Just like how fine steel had to go through many layers of forging and the edge of a treasured sword had to be sharpened many times, the foundation of the gung metal divine body also required a long period of cultivation. With Jiang Tian's experience, if it was an average body constitution, it would only take half a month to advance from the 8th level of qi refinement to the foundation establishment realm. However, it was too difficult for the divine body of gung metal to break through to the foundation establishment realm, especially from the 9th level of qi refinement. Every time he made a breakthrough, it would take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or even longer. It was hard to say. 20 years, 30 years on Earth was a very long time. However, it was not considered long in the cultivation realm. In the cultivation realm, many cultivators, especially high-level cultivators, would enter seclusion for 200 or 300 years. Even for the average body constitution, 20 or 30 years of seclusion was not considered long to reach the foundation establishment realm from the qi refinement realm. After all, going from the 9th level of qi refinement to the foundation establishment realm was a huge leap. To condense a Tao foundation, one had to transform one sea of qi into a golden core field as the foundation for condensing a golden core. Of course, once the divine body of gung metal reached the foundation establishment realm, one's strength would increase greatly. Be it one's cultivation, divine powers, body constitution, or consciousness, they would all become unimaginably powerful. To put it simply, one would be invincible among the same level. A first-level divine body of gung metal could instantly kill a 9th-level foundation establishment cultivator with an average body constitution. Only when one met a golden core cultivator would one need to avoid them. According to Jiang Tian's deduction, the legendary sky immortals and holy venerables on Earth were actually equivalent to a 3rd-level foundation establishment cultivator. If Jiang Tian encountered a sky immortal or holy venerate, he could kill them easily. Originally, when Jiang Tian cultivated the divine body of gung metal, it would take him 30 years or even longer to break through from the 8th level of qi refinement to the foundation establishment realm. However, with this time acceleration array, it was different. It would greatly shorten the time. Even if he cultivated here for 100 years, only 100 days would have passed in the outside world. Thus, it is our honor to serve Master. The Wolf King and Situ Zhao's expressions froze as they hurriedly bowed. While Jiang Tian was refining pills and cultivating in the sword catacomb, in the outside world, a storm was brewing once more, and it was in complete chaos. Time passed quickly. 5 days, 10 days, 30 days. Ever since Jiang Tian stepped into the sword catacomb, he had not come out. Many people suspected that Jiang Tian had died there. After all, it was said that there were many deadly arrays there. Many immortal state warriors had died there before. Someone saw a blood qi rising 300 meters from an ancient castle in Northern Ireland and enveloping half of the town. The European cultivation world was shocked. The hand of death, blood ancestor, Ali, had been born. This blood ancestor, Ali, was one of the 8 blood ancestors. In the Middle Ages, when technology was not yet advanced, he had once devoured an entire city of living beings. He drank human blood and ate human flesh for food. His lifespan was unimaginably long. Then in Mongolia, someone took a picture of a haggard old man wearing a sheepskin coat. He walked out with a walking stick and crossed a 300-meter-tall mountain in one step. According to the old herdsman, the old man in the sheepskin coat had lived in the forest since he was very young. He was now 80 years old, but he was still very healthy. He was like a god. It's the wolf ancestor of the grassland, Garg, an overlord from the Middle Ages. He should be 500 years old. An overlord of the dark world analyzed the old man's background from videos and historical records. He was so shocked that his hands were shaking. Chapter 765. He used to be a close friend of Huang Taiji and Empress Dowager Xiaozhuang. He was also the state preceptor of the Jin dynasty. In terms of seniority and strength, even the Ice Plains wolf ancestor was his disciple. This was too shocking. An old monster with a lifespan of almost 500 years was still alive, and he was not weak at all. Kong Teichu is dead. These old monsters can't sit still anymore. They want to conquer the world and take control of the secular countries. Some overlords posted on the dark net excitedly. Following that, more strange phenomena appeared. Some people saw a huge tsunami erupting in the Bermuda Triangle. Hurricanes and cyclones rose into the sky. Several large scientific research ships of the United States were swallowed by the waves, but a man covered in seaweed walked on the waves and lifted the sinking ships of 10,000 tons one after another. After the news broke out, some UFO enthusiasts claimed that the UFO was left behind by an alien civilization and that the technology of the United States came from them. Then, the Golden Temple in Mexico, which was the site of the Mayan civilization, had many believers. In the Golden Temple, a crystal head worshipped by the believers suddenly shone brightly. The golden statue suddenly opened its eyes and moved its eyeballs. Then, the entire temple let out cries and howls. It was said that tens of thousands of believers gathered and prayed that day. The God King has come out of seclusion. During this period, all kinds of anomalies appeared in Europe, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and India. Many netizens posted videos and comments on the dark net, claiming that they had seen a real god. Ever since Jiang Tian defeated France, news about Sidoni and other gods had been spreading non-stop. Although the information management departments of the major countries were on guard and deleting posts crazily, there were still all kinds of secret forums. For example, the Supers Forum, Marvel Comics, Oriental Mythology, Werewolf Home, Alchemy Research Forum, and so on. Most of these videos and news appeared on these forums first before spreading to the dark net. Other than the person who posted it, these videos and news were thought to be fake legends or funny special effects videos. They just laughed and passed by. However, for the real overlords of the dark net, it was no less shocking than a nuclear explosion. Steppe wolf ancestor, blood ancestor, sea god tribe, Mayan descendant, Tai King Gong Tao. Every day, someone would refresh the list of new experts. Most of these experts had surpassed the immortal state. Some of them were even human immortals or earth immortals. There were also some fake news, but it was immediately removed by insiders. However, there were some experts who did exist, and their battle records were glorious. What's wrong with this world? There are actually so many experts in the divine realm and those beyond the divine realm. There were experts who cried out in alarm. They felt as if the world was changing, as if a storm was about to arrive. It made them feel uneasy. They are after Kong Teichu's Sidoni. A wise man analyzed, those overlords above the immortal state level have been hiding for too long and their living space has been restricted by the superpowers. You have to understand that they were originally experts who controlled countries and sections. How could they be willing to accept this? On the other hand, Kong Teichu controlled the United States Congress, defeated France, suppressed the European Union, and controlled Sidoni. He was on par with the leaders of the superpowers in the world. Who wouldn't envy him? Since these countries can tolerate the existence of Kong Teichu and Sidoni, Their bottom line is clear. The overlords are likely to occupy Sidoni and turn Sidoni into a habitat for human overlords. Would the superpowers in the world want to see these overlords? A puzzled expert asked. You have to know that the United States of America hunted down immortal state warriors all over the world in the 1950s and 1960s. They will threaten the status of the superpowers in the world and shake the foundation of society based on technology and market economy. The current situation is that the superpowers and the super overlords are using each other to get rid of Kong Taechu first. The wise man continued his analysis. The first step is to crush the remaining forces of Kong Taechu. They might be the superpowers or the super overlords and occupy Sidoni. The second step is to wage war between the super overlords and the superpowers in the world. One side will enslave or destroy the other. Wouldn't Kong Taechu and Sidoni become the targets of the overlords in the world? Many overlords gasped. Haha, I think it's just a pipe dream. Kong Taechu has never lost a battle since his debut. He even crushed the superpowers in the world. Who would dare to provoke him? Someone argued and listed Jiang Tian's valiant achievements. That's right. Kong Taechu is invincible. Whoever dares to provoke Kong Taechu will die. My blade is thirsty again. Big Blade Brother, a die-hard fan, cheered for Jiang Tian again. But then, an earth-shattering message resounded across the entire Deep Web forum like a clap of thunder. Don't you know that Kong Taechu has died in the Sword Tomb? Hearing this, immediately, there were curses and taunts. Get the hell out of my way of thinking. Are you a clown brought here by a monkey? Kong Taechu had surpassed the immortal state and was an earth-level deity. How could he die? Tiske, some weaklings are like this. They're jealous of others because of their low level of cultivation, but they don't dare to provoke others, so they curse others behind their backs. 80% of the users on the Deep Web forum were Jiang Tian's loyal fans. Who wouldn't be angry after seeing such comments? But the blood drinker overlord wasn't angry at all, nor did he refute or respond. When everyone was done, he said, "Have you heard of the one-day imprisonment array? Our master, the Genu Demon King, has set up a one-day imprisonment array outside the Sword Tomb, and Kong Taechu has been in there for more than 20 days. That's equivalent to more than 200 years. More than 200 years. Even if he's an Earth-level deity, he should have reached the end of his life by now. If he's still alive, he must have found a way to get out. But he hasn't done anything yet. He's either dead or has found a way to get out. Who is the blood drinker? Is what he said true? What exactly is the one-day imprisonment array? Many overlords asked in fear. But slowly, the identity of the blood drinker and the information about the one-day imprisonment array were dug up. The blood drinker should be the famous Duke Dracula. And the one-day imprisonment array was the masterpiece of Ali, one of the 8 blood ancestors. In the Middle Ages, he had once used this formation to trap a red-robed cardinal to death. When all this information was presented in front of everyone, the Deep Web forum was dead silent. Everyone felt their blood run cold, unable to utter a single word. It's possible that Jiang Taechu has really died. After a long while, someone finally spoke up in a trembling voice. This news spread like wildfire and gradually spread. And then, another piece of news was earth-shattering. It was like a stone that set off 1,000 ripples, causing an uproar in the Dark World. The Dark Council was born. The werewolves, blood breeds, grand wizards, shamans, and other dark overlords had formed an alliance. They declared that they would protect the secular order of Europe and wage war against Kong Taechu's henchmen. They wanted to wipe out Sidoni. At the founding meeting, European Union President Jung, Russia's great Emperor Putin, and other dignitaries came to congratulate them. They also drank and chatted with the wolf ancestor of the grassland, Garg, and blood ancestor Ali. At the gathering, blood ancestor Ali wore a woolen suit, an antique gold pocket watch, and a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He looked like a gentleman. In front of many European royalty and nobles, he held a glass of red wine and spoke into the microphone. "I'm still a part of the earth. I don't want to see people die. I don't want to see the flames of war. Since the rise of Kong Taechu, he has been killing people and stirring up territorial disputes and local wars. Sidoni has become the most unstable factor in the world. He spoke in a standard London accent as if he was reciting a sonnet. I'm willing to contribute to the safety of the earth and world peace. The Dark Council has been reactivated and many Dark Overlords have reached an agreement to suppress Sidoni. Here, we advise the people of Sidoni not to be stubborn. For world peace, expel the Tianqing school and Kong Teichu's henchmen. Mr. Ali, thank you for your righteous actions. The people of Europe will remember your kindness. In front of the camera, European Union President Jung and the Great Emperor of Russia raised their glasses and bowed to the blood ancestor. This news was only released to the dark world. The dark net and many other overlords received the news. Many people were shocked and couldn't believe it. Aren't the blood ancestor and the steppe wolf ancestor the enemies of the European Union and the superpowers? Why are they working together? Someone exclaimed on the Darknet forum. This is hilarious. The blood ancestor and the steppe wolf ancestor have killed thousands of people, fed on human flesh and drank blood. Now, they want to protect the peace of the earth and the safety of mankind. This is hilarious. Some overlords sneered. You don't know. The Holy See, which has a close relationship with the royal family, the Dark Council, which represents the super overlords, and the secular regime, which represents the bourgeoisie. There are three forces in the first place. A wise person spoke and pointed out the puzzle for everyone. Since World War I, the secular regime and the Holy See work together to kill and expel the Dark Council, but that doesn't mean that the secular regime doesn't hate and be wary of the Holy See. The Holy See and the secular regime were originally in a competitive relationship. The Holy See is close to the royal family and controls the faith of the European people. It's possible for them to overthrow the secular regime. You should know that in the Middle Ages, almost every royal family had to obey the orders of the Holy See because the monarchy was given by God. Now, the capitalist revolution has been successful and capitalist countries have been established. They are free from the control of the royal family and the Holy See. How can they repeat the same mistake? Now, if the European Union uses the power of the Holy See, it's very likely that it will cause the Holy See and the royal family to grow stronger and weaken the secular regime. So, it's obviously more rational and reliable for them to choose the Dark Council. Then, someone asked, the Dark Council once collapsed because of the power struggle between the werewolves and the blood breeds. Why did it reappear? Also, the steppe wolf ancestor and the blood ancestor are only executive speakers. So, who is the president of the Dark Council? Chapter 766. This was also the concern of many overlords. The reason why the Covenant of Darkness disappeared was not only because of the secular political system, the rapid development of technology, and the suppression of the Holy See, but also because of the constant internal conflicts. Since the beginning of the Middle Ages, the blood breeds and the werewolves had been mortal enemies for hundreds of years. Now, they had actually shaken hands and formed the Covenant of Darkness. A true overlord has appeared. He's called the Demon King of Hell, and he's from Huaxia. Someone in the know revealed. His momentum is even fiercer than Kong Teichu's. He once fought 6 European countries in one night and forced the 8 Duke-level blood breeds to bow their heads. He once defeated 3 first-generation vampires in a row. His strength is earth-shattering. In Europe, countless overlords have fallen in his hands. 100 years ago, the demon hunter Van Helsing of the power rankings, the #1 alchemist in England, Kira, and 2 main deities of the 12 main deities of the pantheon, Artemis and Poseidon, were all killed by him with a raise of his hand. Also, he defeated the wolf ancestor of the grassland and took over the moon-worshipping wolf clan and the grassland wolf clan. Many Caucasian shamans and priests were no match for him and became his subordinates. Not only is he powerful, but more importantly, he has the secret of immortality and can infinitely increase their lifespan. So, many overlords of the Dark World submitted to him and jointly elected him as the president of the Covenant of Darkness. When these results were announced, the entire Dark World was dead silent. All the overlords were dumbfounded and couldn't believe it, as if they had seen a ghost. Such results were too glorious. He wasn't inferior to Jiang Tian. Blood Ancestor Ali had once killed the Red Bishop and the Lord of the Holy See. His strength was equivalent to an Eastern Sky Immortal, at least a level. But Blood Ancestor Ali was still defeated by this person, which showed that his strength was at least comparable to Sky Immortals and Lords. Everyone was dumbfounded. Then they exclaimed, "He's from Hua Xia like Kong Teichu. What's his name?" Niaming. On this day, the name Demon King of Hell, Niaming, appeared out of nowhere and shocked the world of overlords. Some people thought that he was an expert who was on par with Jiang Tian. They were like two constellations that shone brightly in the sky. Some people regarded him as Jiang Tian's replacement. They thought that he would replace and crush Jiang Tian to become the new master of Sidoni. Outside, a storm was brewing. In the Sword Tomb, Jiang Tian had already completed the refinement of the Scarlet Flame Good Fortune Pill. Moreover, the refinement of the Building Foundation Pill had also reached the final juncture. Dragon Grass, Red Blood Vine, Flame Spirit Crystal, Vein Opening Flower. Within the 5-element pill refinement cauldron, great herbs were like clouds and spirit energy was like an ocean, seething and roiling without end as numerous strands of dense spirit energy seeped out. These spiritual herbs were all from the Sword Tomb, and they were originally thousands of years old. Now, after a day of being catalyzed by the prison formation, it was even more mature. It contained an incomparably dense amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi, and its medicinal efficacy was surging. Fortunately, the Immortal of 9 Swords came from the ruins of immortality and brought some great herbs and seeds with him. He also spent hundreds of years on Earth to collect and cultivate all kinds of medicinal herbs. Otherwise, with just Jiang Tian's collection and cultivation on Earth, it would probably take 10 years of hard work to collect all of them. The 5-element pill refinement cauldron revolved. As the Wolf King threw one crystal after another into it, blue flames flickered. These crystals were called Flame Essence Crystals. They were plundered by Jiang Tian when he massacred the treasures of the French blood god, Martel. These crystals could erupt with flame essence comparable to Li fire and true Samadhi fire. They could extract the essence of medicinal herbs to the greatest extent. Increase the firepower. Increase the true chi by 10%. Jiang Tian's eyes were deep, and his divine sense was pervasive in probing the subtle changes of each medicinal herb. "Yes, master." On the side, Sidhu Shao heard this and slowly pushed his right hand forward like a claw. Suddenly, a burst of true chi erupted from his palm and rushed into the cauldron's vent. Boom! The flames suddenly became a bit stronger, and the temperature rose to a subtle degree. If any overlord from the Dark World saw this, they would be shocked. Jiang Tian's alchemy was extravagant this time. Sidhu Shao, the founder of the Hong sect, and Alexander, the moon-worshipping Wolf King, held the charcoal in his hand. Suddenly, the cauldron shook violently as if it was about to explode. "Master, what is it?" Sidhu Shao and the Wolf King exclaimed. "Don't worry, the Foundation Establishment Pill is almost done." Jiang Tian's face was calm. He formed a hand seal and infused the cauldron with his Dharma power. Boom! Boom! The cauldron shook even more violently. It was as if a prehistoric beast was trying to break free from its shackles. "Master, is this still a pill?" Even Sidhu Shao was shocked. His eyes widened in disbelief. Sidhu Shao was an earth-level deity who had lived for 300 years. He was the leader of the Hong sect, and he had seen all kinds of pills. However, this was the first time he had seen such a powerful pill. It was so powerful that it felt as if the pill was alive. Of course, the Foundation Establishment Pill is a superior grade spirit pill. Of course, it has a hint of spirituality. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and slapped the lid of the cauldron. Boom! The lid flew out of the cauldron, and a few Foundation Establishment pills flew into the air. However, Jiang Tian stopped them with his arcane art. Above the dozens of pills, there was dense spiritual energy, floating indeterminately like a colorful haze. "Not bad." Jiang Tian's eyes lit up with joy. "The 13 Scarlet Flame Fortune pills that I refined before, the Moon Spirit pill that I refined for the Wolf King, and the blood-concealing divine pill that I refined for Situ Shao are all mid-grade spirit medicines. Master, I will never forget your kindness in giving me these pills. Situ Shao and the Wolf King kowtowed to Chen Fan with tears of gratitude in their eyes. The two of them had been able to stay in the sword vault for so long because Jiang Tian had given them very good pills and taught them how to refine them. Therefore, after spending such a long time in the sword vault, not only did their lifespan not decrease, but their cultivation had also become stronger. The Wolf King's original combat strength was not at the human immortal stage. However, he was now at the peak of the human immortal stage and was 10 times stronger than the ice-field wolf ancestor. As for Situ Zhao's cultivation, after taking the pills given by Jiang Tian, it had become even more unfathomable. Moreover, he had gradually mastered the 5 elements heaven-seizing magic sword and had reached the peak of the earth immortal stage. He was showing signs of breaking through to the sky immortal stage. Once he became a sky immortal, he would have a lifespan of 500 years, or even 1,000 years. How could Situ Shao, who was at the end of his lifespan, not be happy and grateful? One had to know that he had chosen to stop his lifespan because his lifespan was almost up and he needed to hibernate to wait for an opportunity. The reason why he had risked his life to fight Jiang Tian was that he wanted to become a sky immortal and break through the shackles of his lifespan. The foundation establishment pills that I have refined this time are supreme grade pills. Even in the cultivation world, they are very good. Jiang Tian waved his hand and looked at the pills attentively. He continued with a sigh. He said with emotion, "This is because although it seems to only take a few hours to refine these pills, it is equivalent to dozens of days in the outside world. Dozens of days of painstaking effort, of course, it is much better than ordinary pills." At this time, the spiritual qi of the foundation establishment pills transformed and formed 2 streams of qi, one black and one white. The black and white qi circled around and circulated endlessly, forming a Tai Chi yin-yang fish pattern. Master, this pill has a trace of Tao nature. It's amazing. Situ Zhao's heart shook, he was deeply moved, and he exclaimed. This is nothing. Jiang Tian said lightly. If you reach the level of golden core, you can refine precious medicines. That kind of energy can even explode an alchemy furnace. As for the sacred medicines and divine medicines above the precious medicines, they can even take human form or even become living beings with a lifespan of thousands of years. After entering the divine realm, you can refine the highest level of divine medicines. Sometimes, the true gods use a star as the furnace fire, a galaxy as the medicine liquid, and billions of deities as the medicine catalyst. Speaking of this, Jiang Tian seemed to be thinking of the past. His eyes became full of vicissitudes and he was fascinated. After the medicine is refined, the star will dry up and turn into a supernova and explode. It will even cause the space to collapse and annihilate a galaxy. Ah? The Wolf King and Situ Zhao's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when they heard this. They only felt that their heads were about to explode. They couldn't bear the huge psychological impact. They controlled a country and a sect and thought that standing at the top of the planet, they were complacent and arrogant and had a heroic feeling. But they didn't expect that in Jiang Tian's world, refining a divine medicine would dry up a star and destroy a galaxy, using the common people as the catalyst, the galaxy as the medicine liquid, and devouring a galaxy to evolve oneself. What kind of heaven-defying means was this? The real work of the deities. Compared to the grandeur that Jiang Tian had described, the two of them immediately felt like they were as insignificant as ants. It's a pity that even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. Jiang Tian shook his head and put the foundation-building pill in his hand. He said with mixed feelings, I'm only at the 8th level of qi refinement now. I'm already very lucky to be able to refine such a pill. Boom. Jiang Tian stood up, glanced at the two of them and said in a deep voice, in the next month, I'll use this time acceleration array to push myself to the 9th level of qi refinement. And the next month, I'll push myself to the level of foundation establishment. You too, guard the entrance of the valley. No matter what happens, don't alert me. Sidu Shao and the Wolf King answered and quickly left the temple and rushed to the entrance. Jiang Tian had broken through a level in the ancient Wudong and reached the 8th level of qi refinement, forming the indestructible golden body. With the indestructible golden body, he was not afraid of the erosion of time, armor-piercing bullets, nuclear explosions, or even laser weapons and electromagnetic cannons. It could be said that with such a cultivation, Jiang Tian could already challenge the superpowers of the world and fight against millions of soldiers. Unless there were consecutive nuclear explosions, no country, no faction, no person would be able to kill Jiang Tian. But Jiang Tian still wasn't satisfied. The experience in the Sky Sword Tomb proved that there was a dimensional channel between the ruins of immortality and Earth, and there was even more than one teleportation array. The Immortal of 9 Swords was a Sky Immortal. According to Jiang Tian's estimation, he should be at the 3rd level of Foundation Establishment, which was already very good. But in the ruins of Immortals, the Immortal of 9 Swords was just a nobody who could be trampled on. Just because he accidentally broke a Big Shot's glass cup, which was either a decoration or a magic tool, he was kicked to earth. Therefore, there must be a large number of Foundation Establishment overlords in the ruins of immortality, including Golden Core and Nascent Soul Old Monsters. Whether it was entering the ruins of immortality or surviving in the ruins of immortality, it was an unprecedented challenge for Jiang Tian. Chapter 767. The next step should be to find the southern gate of heaven and go to the ruins of immortality through the bridge of heaven. Jiang Tian's gaze was as sharp as a blade, his expression was firm as he leisurely said, he said calmly, "But before that, I must search the earth and be fully prepared to reach the mid-stage of Foundation Establishment and even form the Golden Core. When I reach the ruins of immortality, I won't be in a passive position and be at the mercy of others." He didn't know what kind of order and civilization there was in the ruins of immortality. But at any time, the strong had ways to exploit and oppress the weak. It was just that the methods were different. Bang! The next moment, Jiang Tian took out the sky-swallowing demonic gourd from his waist. Many crimson flame fortune pills, which had been refined earlier and were as translucent as red agates, flew into Jiang Tian's mouth. Boom! Jiang Tian's body shook. The surging medicinal power in his qi si churned wildly. His qi si kept expanding under the bombardment of the medicinal power, and it kept trembling as if it was about to explode. The terrifying medicinal power expanded his energy reserve and meridians to 10 times their original size. The medicinal power is indeed powerful and abundant. It's more than enough to reach the 9th level of qi refinement. Jiang Tian wasn't afraid at all. Instead, a trace of ecstasy appeared on his face. He made a series of hand seals and the 7th metal divine body art was activated. Suddenly, the medicinal power was refined into a vast amount of 7th metal true essence. Like a surging river, it poured into his meridians, organs, and bones, cleansing his entire body. In the spring and summer of 2011, Sidoni experienced the most severe rainstorm in history. There were frequent tropical storms. The entire Sidoni was a vast ocean. The Cass River was surging and the riverbed was submerged. The entire Sidoni was busy. The army and the people were involved in the war against the flood. Sidoni, Jiuxiao Peak, Tianqing School's training hall. In a clean and elegant office. The data on the LCD screens flowed like a waterfall. Many computer hackers and intelligence personnel were busy working. Outside, the rain was pouring and lightning flashed. As usual, Sasaki Kaisha, Merrill and dozens of intelligence officers analyzed the intelligence stolen and collected from the dark web in the major countries. Suddenly, an outer court disciple hurriedly rushed in and reported, "Hall Master, someone requests to see you." Sasaki Haisha asked. Sect leader of Hua Xia's ancient Wung, Tang Linglong. The outer sect disciple's face was ghastly pale as he spoke in a trembling voice. They knew that Tang Linglong was the eldest disciple of the sect leader, so they treated her with respect. However, as soon as they said that they wanted to go in and report, Tang Linglong flew into a rage and destroyed a statue of a mythical beast at the door. "Oh, let her in." Sasaki Haisha was still very respectful to this big sister and quickly said, "There's no need to invite me in, I'm coming in." A beautiful figure, with a monstrous baleful aura, walked in with large strides under the escort of a group of wudang experts. The red tassel of Tang Linglong's sword on her back was dripping with rain. The rain-soaked cyan robe clung tightly to her curvaceous body, exuding a strange beauty that was a mixture of sexiness, charm, and purity. Her long and curly eyelashes were stained with dew-like raindrops. Her pretty face was washed by the rain and her eyebrows looked very clean. Behind her were 8 elders of Wudong. Most of them were half a step away from the immortal state, and some were even in the immortal state. No one knew what method Tang Linglong used to enhance their cultivation. "I want to see Zhao Xueqing," Tang Linglong said proudly. "You can't call the mistress by her name. Even if you are the eldest disciple, you can't forget the seniority." Sasaki Kaisha's face changed and said in a cold voice, "Let her out." Tang Linglong's beautiful eyes were as sharp as a knife, giving tit for tat. Boom! A surge of energy came out of her body and pushed out horizontally. The entire office shook and the tables and chairs collapsed. "How dare you!" Sasaki Kaisha was furious and scolded. "The mistress is in seclusion and no one is allowed to disturb her. Do you want to overturn the sect? Let her out. Otherwise, I will kill you." Tang Linglong shouted angrily. Clang! The sword on her back moved without any wind. It jumped up quickly and slashed towards Sasaki Kaisha like a bolt of lightning. Sasaki Kaisha exclaimed. His body flashed back like lightning and slid more than 10 meters away in an instant. Boom! Tang Linglong's sword pierced a big hole in the wall. With a flash of cold light, the treasured sword flew back into the scabbard on its back after a dazzling spin. What a powerful strength! This crazy girl has reached the immortal state. Sasaki Kaisha's eyes were full of fear. Her face was pale and cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She had been enlightened by Jiang Tian and his wife and had been cultivating diligently for the past few days. She had already reached half an immortal state and was as powerful as the one origin of the Sword God Palace in Japan. However, Tang Linglong had almost pierced through her. She didn't know that the foundation of the ancient Wudang sect was not bad. After Jiang Tian opened the treasury of the ancient Wudang sect, many sword arts classics and spirit herbs were open to Tang Linglong. She had also been enlightened by Jiang Tian before, and she was also someone with great talent and comprehension ability. If she was able to comprehend things by analogy, wouldn't her cultivation level increase explosively? Now that she had reached the immortal state, she could compete with the sect masters of the hidden sections. However, Sasaki Kaisha was now the president of the Sakura Society. She was also a stubborn person. Seeing Tang Linglong's arrogance, she couldn't stand it. She raised her right hand and opened her palm. Suddenly, a katana on the table flew out of its scabbard and into his hand. Sasaki Kaisha held the handle of the tachi with both hands and pointed the sharp tip at Tang Linglong, shouting angrily. "You are the hall master of the Wudang sect of Tianqing School, but I am the hall master of the punishment hall. How dare you attack me? Do you know the rules of the sect? You called the mistress by her name. Do you know who your master is? The sect had instructed you to guard Hua Xia. You didn't listen to the order and acted rashly. Do you have any respect for the dignity of the sect? You will be punished for several crimes. I order you to kneel down and admit your mistake. Otherwise, I will punish you." Sasaki Kaisha, who do you think you are? You want me to kneel down? I am the first disciple of my master. Tang Linglong raised her eyebrows and shouted, "I don't want to talk nonsense with you. I got the news that my master was trapped by an array in the northern islands of Russia, which alarmed the entire dark world." Tang Linglong said angrily, "What are you doing now? Aren't you going to rescue my master?" The more she said, the angrier she got. Tears were in the corner of her eyes. "Without my master, would you have the status you have now? Would you have such a powerful cultivation? You have nothing. Whether you can even survive is still a question." "Ha, Isn't this the news that Elder Dongson gave to my master? Isn't it your Wudong sect's fault? Sasaki Kaisha said mockingly. Plop. Elder Dongson was so scared that he knelt down and exclaimed, Senior Sasaki, please investigate. I definitely didn't know that there was a time array in the sword catacomb. I was just telling the truth. I had no intention of framing Master Kong. Sasaki Kaisha didn't bother to look at him and sneered. Tang Linglong, aren't you most concerned about your master? Aren't you very filial? But now your Wudong sect's Wudong sect has caused my master to be missing. Last time, Chen Onping gathered Sidi Yuanhao and many other immortal realm cultivators to set up a trap to harm my master. If my master's cultivation wasn't strong enough, he would have been killed by you. Last time, you caused an international dispute. At that time, the Condor team put pressure on my master to punish you by military law. In order to save you and to take the blame for you, my master had to go to Japan to be punished. If my cultivation wasn't strong enough, how many lives do you think I would have had to be killed by the 28-man army in Japan? Tell me, how much trouble have you caused for my master? You put my master in danger time and time again. If my master's cultivation wasn't strong enough, he might have died a few hundred times. It's rare to see a disciple like you who would take advantage of her master. If I were you, I would kill myself to atone for my sins. You brainless idiot with low cultivation. You want to be my master's woman? Bah, your dreams are much better than your looks. Dream on. With every sentence that Sasaki Kaisha said, Tang Linglong's pretty face turned paler and paler. By the time she finished speaking, Tang Linglong's face was already as pale as a sheet of paper. Her delicate body was trembling uncontrollably. At this time, Tang Linglong was blaming herself and anxious. Her face was full of bitterness, sadness, and despair. Tears flowed down her face, but she couldn't cry a single word. When Sasaki Kaisha spat out the last sentence, Tang Linglong's body suddenly trembled. She screamed and a mouthful of blood shot out from her mouth. Are you okay? I just want to persuade you to calm down and don't do anything stupid. Seeing the scarlet blood on the ground, Sasaki Kaisha couldn't bear it. Her face softened and she wanted to help Tang Linglong. In fact, from Tang Linglong's point of view, she was obsessed with Jiang Tian all her life and couldn't get him. It was also very tragic. But her arrogant look really annoyed Sasaki Kaisha and she couldn't help but want to provoke her. Don't come over. Tang Linglong wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, pointed her long sword at Sasaki Kaisha and shouted angrily. I want to talk to you more, don't I? Sasaki Kaisha stopped and muttered in a low voice. I owe master. Of course, I know. I will pay for it with my life. Tang Linglong held the table to prevent herself from falling. She closed her eyes and said slowly, I violated the rules of the sect. I also know that, after I saved Master, I naturally came to the punishment hall to receive my punishment. But I love Master. Whether Master accepts it or not, it is my right. That sentence, you shouldn't have said it. Suddenly, Tang Linglong opened her eyes. Her hair was flying, and her eyes were as sharp as a knife. Her true essence surged all over her body, and the rain immediately evaporated like smoke. So, you can go and die. As soon as she finished speaking. With a swish, Tang Linglong's sharp sword swept toward Sasaki Kaisha. Sister Long, why are you looking for the mistress? Suddenly, a gentle voice sounded. Swish. In the sharp sound, two crystal-clear jade-like breaths broke through the air and firmly entangled the two swords and Tachi. The next moment, the two swords spiraled back into the sheath uncontrollably. The two women looked back and saw Huang Linger coming from outside the door. Although her bearing was delicate and timid, like a weak willow in the wind and a delicate flower shining on the water, her eyes were shining and firm. There was a smile on her mouth, and she had a different kind of charm. Chapter 768. Greetings, Seniorling, Earth. Sasaki Haisha respectfully clasped his fists and bowed to salute. The relationship between Huang Linger and Jiang Tian was a secret in Tianqing School. It was said that Huang Linger and Master Kong had an ill-fated relationship, but they were not close. Zhao Xueqing was also very concerned about Huang Linger. She asked about her well-being in daily life and taught her cultivation. They were like sisters. There was a time when Chen Yang and the others thought they were smart enough to call Huang Linger "little mistress" to please her. But Huang Linger was so anxious that she cried and asked them not to call her that in the future. She said that it was good enough that she could stay in Tianqing school and accompany Jiang Tian. That's her. She wants Master to love her. She can share Master's love like Zhao Xueqing. As soon as she saw her, Tang Linglong immediately felt a surge of bitterness and grievance in her heart. Her eyes were red, her hands were trembling, and her heart was filled with crazy hatred. But she can. Why can't I? How is she better than me? Suddenly, she sorrowfully thought that it was very likely that her master was already dead, so what was the point of being jealous? She felt a sharp pain in her heart, as if thousands of steel knives were twisting in her soft heart. She covered her chest and said, "Huang Linger, I want everyone to rescue Master together. He's in the northern islands. He once asked the Moon Wolf clan to tell us that Master will be fine. He asked us to guard Sidoni." Huang Linger said gently, "But that's the one-day prison array that once killed a holy venerable." Tang Linglong shouted, "Even a human immortal or earth immortal will turn into bones and dust after 30 days in there." Huang Linger was not good with words. After a moment of silence, she said with a smile, "You have to believe in Master's strength. No array in this world can trap Master." "But he hasn't come out yet." Tang Linglong said angrily, "I've talked to Yi Zhantian before. That formation is listed as one of the top 10 most dangerous formations in the world. There's no benefit in staying in there, right? If Master could break it, why didn't he come out? What was he doing in there? I'm playing. Why is it like this? I don't know." Huang Linger was stunned for a moment, then she smiled gently and said, "But I think Master must have his reasons for doing so. As women, all we have to do is listen to his orders. Don't act on your own initiative and disrupt his rhythm." Tang Linglong, all the information you've mentioned has been closely monitored and analyzed by thousands of intelligence analysts and special agents in Tianqing School and Sidoni's intelligence department. They know everything. At that moment, Observer Merrill interrupted. "But this time, we think that Master Kong will be fine. The real danger is Sidoni. According to our analysis, there's a possibility that the whole world will go after Sidoni. Of course, except for Huaxia. So, guarding Sidoni is the key to winning this war. You know, the foundation of Tianqing School is here." "I understand what you're saying, but I think," Tang Linglong interrupted, "the best defense is offense. Since the grassland werewolves and vampires have shown their hostility, then we should strike first. Kill them." Huang Linger's combat strength was very strong, but she was a bit muddle-headed in the face of such a complicated situation. She didn't know whether it made sense or not, so she was speechless for a moment. At that moment, Sasaki Kaisha said, "How about this? I'll take you to Master's wife. She's fighting the flood." "Didn't you say she was in seclusion?" Tang Linglong was surprised, then she said angrily, "How dare you lie to me? Fighting the flood is as important as training in seclusion. Sidoni is the foundation of Taiqing sect. Without this land they provided, there would be no Taiqing sect dojo." Huang Linger said seriously. "Besides, the Coelian system array is about to be completed. It will be the largest Dharma artifact in history. It's comparable to a nuclear weapon, and this huge project involves 30,000 workers and scientists from Sidoni." Sasaki Ocean Sand interjected. "Yeah, 30,000 people. Do you think it's possible to create such a great weapon with only a few hundred people in our sect? This is why our master built Sidoni, and why he cares about these ordinary people. They can be as small as ants, but as magnificent as gods." But, Tang Linglong couldn't be bothered. She just urged, "Stop talking nonsense and take me to Zhao Xueqing." Sasaki Kaisha shrugged. He could only call for a military helicopter and took Tang Linglong to the Cass River. For Zhang San and Li Si of the Three Heroes Manor, this was an unforgettable day. It was also the biggest flood they had ever seen. On the Cass River, Turbid waves surged. The angry flood was like a yellow dragon, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, invading the plains on both sides. However, the meteorological department did not forecast this heavy rain and flood at all. Fortunately, the Heavenly Army soldiers reacted quickly and sent countless helicopters to help the residents evacuate. The casualties were kept in single digits. The main purpose of fighting the flood was to protect the crops and the industries in the plains. On the south side of the Cass River was a boundless plain. 30 kilometers south was the capital, San Juan. In this area, 80% of the country's industries were concentrated. New Silicon Valley, Medicine King Industrial Park, Heavenly Army Arsenal, and other large modern industrial groups were all in this area. Sidoni had 600,000 residents. Including the new immigrants, there were less than 1 million people. It was a vast land but sparsely populated. In the face of such a terrifying flood, almost everyone was a soldier and went to war. On the dams on both sides of the Cass River, people were like ants. Many tents were set up high on the dams. Rocks, boards, and woven bags filled with sand were piled up like mountains. People either used machines or carried people on their shoulders to transport the sand over to plug the holes. In the 116th section of the Three Heroes Manor, the deputy commander, Zhang San, had been working continuously for 10 days. Every day, he only slept for 3 hours. His hands were soaked until they turned white. Many layers of skin were peeled off by the sandbags, and some even bled. His dirty hair was very long, and he was as skinny as a stick. However, no matter how much rain poured down, the word "absolute beginning" on his back was always clear. He was very tired, and the heavy work made him pant. He felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. However, he never thought of stopping. Sidoni had never been as prosperous as it was now. The achievements that he had worked so hard to build could not be destroyed by the flood. "Wang Wu, I thought you weren't coming? Why are you here now?" Suddenly, Zhang San saw Wang Wu walk over. Wang Wu was a lazy drunkard in the Three Heroes Manor. No one remembered his original name. He had been recruited by President Kuba's government army and was a low-level officer for a few years. However, in the years of war between the warlords, he had never killed a single person. Every time there was a war, he would shoot randomly into the sky. When it was time to eat, he would throw the gun away and go eat. In fact, this was the typical practice of many soldiers during the war between the warlords in Sidoni. The war was very amateur. It was like a carnival. Sometimes they would fight for a few days and nights. Many bullets would be used, but no one would die. They would eat on time. When they ate, they would throw the gun in the trench or inside the bunker. The enemy would not come over to pick it up. With the establishment of the new government, the soldiers of President Kuba's government army were all sent home. Wang Wu was given a rubber plantation in the Three Heroes Manor, and he also received a sum of living expenses. Wang Wu was old, and it was hard to change his laziness. When he returned home, he did not do anything but spend the severance pay. Every few days, he would go to the nearby construction site to do odd jobs. Every time he finished his odd jobs and earned some pocket money, he would go to the small bar near the manor to buy alcohol. He would get drunk and lie in bed for a few days. Anyway, there were a lot of tropical fruits in the manor, so he would not starve to death. The villagers in the Three Heroes Manor had all gone through vocational training. Almost all of them had proper jobs and earned a lot of money. They were given new houses and moved to the nearby new towns. However, Wang Wu still lived in the old house in the Three Heroes Manor. He was already in his 40s and was not married. He had enough to eat, and his family was not hungry. However, he was proud of himself and called himself the owner of the manor. Sidoni's industry developed quickly, and a large number of farmers entered the city. The land was transferred and merged quickly, forming many large-scale farm owners. The land in the manor was barren and no one was managing it. It was almost abandoned. Many people sold the land to him at a low price, and he got a good deal. However, he was very fashionable and followed the trend. He checked the Chinese dictionary and gave himself a Chinese name. "The bar owner has come to work. I have no alcohol to drink, so I can only come." Wang Wu was wearing a shabby khaki military uniform. He said resentfully, "I heard that there is money to work?" Zhang San said with a smile, "Every bag of sand you carry is 5 yuan suo coins. It's enough for you to buy a bottle of erguo." Under the leadership of Jiang Bangxia, Chen Zhenming, and a group of financial experts, the Sidoni Central Bank was established and issued a sovereign currency, Sidoni dollars, or suo coins for short. Suo coins were based on the exchange rate of the US dollar and had a strong purchasing power. It was a hard currency in the world, and many foreign trade companies were willing to use suo coins for settlement. "How much alcohol can I buy with that? 1 day of work is enough for me to drink for 3 days and 3 nights. Wang Wu was very excited. Like a fly rubbing its hands, he picked up a bag of sand and started working. At this time, the alarm sounded. The broadcast and intercom public channel shouted in English, "Wild Boar Ridge Dam number 117 has breached. 10 meters, nearby construction workers for emergency rescue." Once in English, once in Chinese, but this time the breach was 20 meters. Chapter 769. Wild Boar Ridge Embankment number 117 was less than 10 kilometers away from number 116. Zhang San and Li Si were duty-bound. Zhu Jiangchao from the Ministry of Health was the temporary commander of the construction site. He immediately shouted, "Quick, quick! 20 people over! 3 trucks!" Zhang San and Li Si got into the car. Wang Wu also climbed in. Zhang San asked, "You're going too?" "Of course. If the flood erupts, the tavern will be gone. How will I drink in the future?" Wang Wu grinned and took a sip of ergot. He was very satisfied. 3 trucks broke through the heavy rain and sped towards embankment number 117. When they arrived, everyone was shocked. Everyone was alarmed. They saw that the dam had already been breached by the torrential flood, leaving behind a 40-meter wide hole. The surging river water was like an army rushing down from the gap. Below was a vast swamp. 10 kilometers away was the office building of Unju Real Estate Company and a new town. Sandbags were thrown in and disappeared in the blink of an eye. "What should we do?" Everyone got out of the car and was dumbfounded. Wang Wu suddenly pulled the driver out and sat in. He started the truck and rushed towards the gap. "What are you doing, Wang Wu?" Zhang San shouted as he chased after the truck. "Sandbags are useless. Maybe the truck will be useful. In the name of absolute beginning, defeat the flood." Wang Wu grinned. After all, Wang Wu was trained in the Cuba government army. His driving skills were good. As he shouted, the truck filled with sand and gravel increased its speed. Finally, it jumped and fell into the gap. Boom! The water flow stopped, but it did not wash the truck out. Everyone was stunned at that moment. No one expected the lazy drunkard Wang Wu to do something like that. My absolute beginning. Wang Wu must have drunk too much. This is completely suicidal. A black man shook his head in shock. He didn't drink too much. Even if he drank too much, it's not because he drank too much. Zhang San shook his head gently. Tears blurred his eyes. "Hurry up and get to work," Li Si shouted. His blood-stained hands were holding a gunny sack. His bare feet stepped on the sharp stones as he rushed towards the embankment. His feet were pierced and ground by the sharp stones, causing blood to flow out. However, he did not seem to feel anything and continued to charge forward. Gradually, the crowd became restless, scrambling to hold the sandbags and throw them inside. Immediately after, on the other side, another truck driver drove his car into the water from the other end as if he was facing death. Under everyone's speedy work, the gap was gradually blocked, and the water flow became smaller and smaller. But at this moment, a huge wave of 4 to 5 meters high suddenly came crashing down. Rumble! The 2 trucks carrying dozens of material packages all collapsed, and the torrent poured down. Above the Cass River, several Hua Xia Xiaolong military helicopters were flying in a column. In the leading helicopter, President Chen Yang of Sidoni was reporting to Zhao Xueqing. "Mistress, 3 days ago, the Blood Clan, the Grassland Wolf Clan, and the Western Dark Clan had already launched an attack on Hua Xia's hidden sect. Dian was exterminated, and many of their magical treasures were plundered. In Europe, the palace of the gods was destroyed by the vampires. Several stations were set on fire, and Hera was seriously injured. 2 main gods were killed. Jiang Bangxia, the CFO of the Medicine King Group, and 300 employees in the European Union and Russia were detained by the European Union and Russian authorities on suspicion of bribery, selling counterfeit products, and stealing commercial and military secrets. The European Union and Russian health organizations claimed that the products of the Medicine King Group contained a new type of toxin that caused hundreds of medical accidents. They demanded $100 billion from the Medicine King Group and broadcasted Jiang Bangxia's trial worldwide. They also requested Sidoni to cooperate with the extradition of Zhang Wanqing and Ms. Yi Ziwei. Chen Yang stared at the flood below with a solemn expression. One gap after another appeared, and his face became extremely ugly as he reported to Zhao Xueqing. Now, all the soldiers of the Sky Army are involved in the flood relief. Even many transport planes and helicopters have been requisitioned. Master Kong is not here. We don't know if he's dead or alive. The other party chose to attack at this time. It's obvious that they want to attack us from both sides. Let's eliminate the Taiqing sect. In my opinion, the culprit is still Nie Mingyuan and the Gathering of Darkness. We must make up our minds early to execute the decapitation operation and eliminate Nie Mingyuan and the Gathering of Darkness. Then everything will be solved easily. Zhao Xueqing's face was calm. She shook her head gently and said, "Since the European Union and Russia have intervened, I believe they will take military action later. I'm more worried about the safety of Sidoni now. If it's just the Gathering of Darkness and Nie Mingyuan, they won't dare to detain Jiang Bangxia even if they have 10 times the courage. The situation facing the Taiqing sect and Sidoni now may be more difficult than we thought. There may be a situation where the whole world will go on a punitive expedition against Sidoni. Then we should kill Nie Mingyuan and the Gathering of Darkness now and rescue Jiang Bangxia. As the saying goes, kill 1 to warn 100 to deter the European Union and Russia." Chen Yang's eyes were sharp and ruthless. To resist foreign aggression, we must first stabilize the internal situation. We need to solve the flood, save the people from hanging upside down, and preserve the strength of the military as soon as possible. Zhao Xueqing's eyes were still calm. Why do you think they want to detain Jiang Bangxia? Nie Mingyuan is not a kind person. He doesn't care about the law, trial, and procedural justice. He just wants to lengthen our battle line, lure the enemy in, and annihilate them in batches. This crisis is different from the last one in the Northern Gulf. Taoist Zhang Qianlei and your master are not here. We are short of 2 mortal immortals. The army is held back by the flood. The only ones who can save Jiang Bangxia are me, Ling, Huqing Tian, and a few other immortal state warriors. Once we leave, Sidoni will be an ordinary country. How can it withstand the bombardment of the European Union's coalition forces? It will be destroyed in an instant. Alas, sometimes I really feel that these people are a burden. Chen Yang frowned and heaved a deep sigh. Chen Yang, if you say so, you are not qualified to be a president. Zhao Xueqing's face was unprecedentedly solemn. She said seriously, even though your master is an earth immortal, he has never underestimated the power of human beings. He once said that even among the thousands of races in the universe, the human race is still the most powerful race and has never been defeated after thousands of battles. Maybe the power of one person is very weak, but when 1 million people unite and burst out their power, together with modern weapons, they can defeat more than 100 mortal immortals and earth immortals. Mistress, I know I was wrong. Qin Yang hurriedly lowered his head and said, "What should we do now?" "Solve the flood problem as soon as possible," Zhao Xueqing said. Qin Yang frowned. This flood was very difficult to deal with. It was the heaviest rain in Sidoni's history. All 50,000 Sky Army soldiers were involved in the flood relief, and there were still new dikes bursting out from time to time. They reported that there were 10 dikes more than 40 meters long. So we only need to block 10 of them. Zhao Xueqing looked out of the porthole of the plane, which happened to be the dike at the end of Wild Boar Ridge number 117. It seemed that the dike had just been blocked, and then it was washed away by a huge wave. Hua Qingtan, who had been sitting in silence, smiled and said, "Maybe I can give it a try." A cold glint flashed across Zhao Xueqing's eyes. She said softly, "Master Hua, forget it. A few people have already fallen into the flood." A hint of coldness gradually appeared on her fair and pretty face as she said indifferently, "Besides, there's an old friend of Master Kang's there. It should be the Sea Lady." Sea Lady? Wasn't the Blue Storm defeated by Master Kang? How dare they come? In the cabin, Hua Qingtian, Qin Yang, and the others were stunned. They couldn't believe it. The next moment, Zhao Xueqing opened the cabin door and jumped out. "Mistress, this is..." several cabinet members suddenly exclaimed. They were scared silly. Next to them, King Arthur burst into tears and said, "I knew it. Papa Zhang's accident happened so suddenly. How could Godmother take it?" "But, Godmother..." Next to him, Jiang Wan slapped him. She shouted, "Little Arthur, what are you crying for? My cousin-in-law is not an ordinary person." Jiang Wan and her mother had moved to Sidoni. After all, Sidoni was developing very well. It was the most popular country for immigrants in the world. Jiang Wan and little Arthur were about the same age. They were both studying at the Royal Academy and had become good friends. However, this girl was very hot-tempered. She would beat little Arthur up whenever she disagreed with him, which made the Archbishop feel helpless. Little Arthur stopped crying, not because he was hit by Jiang Wan, but because he was shocked by the scene in front of him. He rubbed his eyes until they were red, but he still felt that the scene in front of him was unreal. Many cabinet members who saw this scene also opened their eyes wide, and their nails dug deep into their palms. Only Hua Qingtian looked calm, and even a little excited. Mistress was going to start a massacre again. Zhao Xueqing jumped down from a helicopter that was hundreds of meters high. She did not die. In the process of falling, her skirt was slightly raised, and her plain clothes were like a lily blooming in the rain. Since embarking on the road of cultivation, Zhao Xueqing's clothes became more and more plain, as if they were not stained by dust. When she was more than 100 meters away from the breach point, she suddenly stopped. Her figure paused for a moment, as if she was stepping on an invisible staircase. She walked down step by step. At this time, the people on the dam, including Zhang San and Li Si, all saw Zhao Xueqing falling from the sky and were suddenly stunned. In the minds of many people in Sidoni, Jiang Tian was the god, and Zhao Xueqing was the queen. If Jiang Tian was the father of the nation, she was the mother of the nation. However, Zhao Xueqing had never shown her great power in Sidoni. In the war in France, she was responsible for destroying many air bases and supporting Jiang Tian. No one knew about her achievements. They only knew that Zhao Xueqing was very favored by the god of the beginning. Every time they went on an inspection trip, he would go hand in hand with her. But no matter what, in their impression, Zhao Xueqing was a kind, gentle woman, or rather, an ordinary woman. However, at this moment, Zhao Xueqing suddenly showed a miracle, which stunned everyone. Chapter 770. Zhao Xueqing's slender fingers reached out and grabbed at the air. Kaboom! Suddenly, the two trucks that weighed more than 3 tons flew out of the water and slowly rose into the air. She stepped into the air and flew to the two trucks as if she was walking on flat ground, saving Wang Wu and the other black man. A soft true essence wrapped around the two of them and sent them to the dam. Then, Zhao Xueqing raised her hand and threw the two trucks into the dam. She raised her hand and grabbed again. A few hundred meters away, hundreds of sacks filled with sand and stones fell into the dam as if they were grabbed by an invisible crane. They were immediately blocked by the flood. Boom! Everyone was in an uproar. Countless Sidoni people were excited. They waved their arms and cheered for Zhao Xueqing. Amidst the thunderous cheers, Zhao Xueqing rushed to the surface of the Cass River. Put, put, put. Zhao Xueqing walked forward step by step, faster and faster. The waves in front of her also became higher and higher. Dark clouds rolled, and large raindrops brushed past her delicate cheeks as they flowed down. The violent wind blew her hair up. Suddenly, the waves of the river changed. Tens of thousands of arrows were formed and pierced towards Zhao Xueqing with a sharp piercing sound. Oh my God, is the river god angry? On the shore, many people cried out in alarm when they saw this scene. They were stupefied. There were many legends in Sidoni. One of them was the river god of the Cass River, who controlled the power of the flood. Once people angered her, she would rain and flood from the sky. In the past, some backward tribes would sacrifice boys and girls and throw them into the river to drown. Seeing this scene, many people were shocked. Even if there is a river god, they shouldn't drown their people. They should be under the rule of the god of the absolute beginning. Zhang San shouted. Yes. Many people nodded and felt that it made sense. Countless sharp water arrows shot over, but Zhao Xueqing didn't dodge and continued to move forward at a fixed speed. Some of the water arrows traveled hundreds of meters and landed on the shore, leaving deep holes in the reefs. It was a ghastly sight. However, the moment the water arrow hit Zhao Xueqing's body, it suddenly shattered and did not cause any harm to her. Come out! At this moment, Zhao Xueqing suddenly made a grabbing motion. Rumble! With a loud bang, turbid waves surged into the sky. A woman in golden heavy armor actually rushed out of the river and stood proudly in the air. It was the Sea Maiden. However, at this moment, her entire body was covered in a strange metal armor, only revealing a pair of sharp eyes. Blue flames of high temperature shot out from the soles of his shoes, burning the water droplets with crackling sounds, and white mist rose into the air. Those metals flickered with a cold light. The lines were smooth and seamless. They looked extremely dense and tough. Just like the legendary Iron Man, his every move was extremely nimble and sci-fi. Kinetic skeleton. On the military helicopter, Qin Yang exclaimed. Rumor has it that the Pentagon and Blue Storm invested a lot of money in research and development. However, due to the lack of battery power and other problems, there was no progress for decades. I didn't expect it to be successfully developed. Everyone's expression was slightly stern. The Sea Maiden was actually the culprit behind the flood, and she was wearing such a strange armor. On the surface of the Cass River, Zhao Xueqing's face was filled with anger. Sea Maiden, you created a storm and flood, causing 23 casualties in our country. This is unforgivable. Madam Zhao Xueqing, it wasn't my intention to cause civilian casualties. My goal was to suppress your country's sky army. The Sea Maiden shook her head lightly, her eyes filled with contempt. Sea Maiden, my husband gave Blue Storm enough face by not killing you last time. I didn't expect you to dare come again. Do you think this is a no man's land? Do you think I can't kill you? Zhao Xueqing sneered. Of course I know that Madam Zhao Xueqing's cultivation is very strong. She's almost on par with Kong Teichu. The Sea Maiden was full of confidence and said proudly, but I have a super armor made of titanium alloy now. Even 100 consecutive attacks from an immortal state expert won't cause any damage. What can you do to me? Her eyes were sharp and her face was filled with mockery. Plus, Blue Storm has already infiltrated more than 200 super armor warriors to cooperate with my operation. I'm afraid we can break through even if the Sky Army comes. Killing you is as easy as snapping my fingers. Come out. Following her command, Li Muchio gave the order. Boom, boom. On the surface of the turbulent water, pillars of water shot up into the sky one after another. The super armor warriors revealed their true appearance and stood in a dense line in the air. There were dozens of them. Swoosh, swoosh. Hundreds of figures jumped out from the cliffs and forests on both sides of the Cass River like grasshoppers. Every step they took was like a heavy cannon striking the sky, shooting hundreds of meters away. When they landed, their feet caused the ground to tremble and crack, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. In just a few leaps, they crossed thousands of meters and arrived at the river. These super armor warriors covered their faces with special glass masks, stepped on blue flames, and held firearms such as electromagnetic guns, crossbows, round shields, long swords, and other cold weapons. They were like extraterrestrials, full of futuristic vibes. They didn't look like they were from this world at all. They quickly formed a circle around Zhao Xueqing, surrounding her so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Sea Maiden, the United States, and Blue Storm have been dormant for so long. Is this all they've come up with? Zhao Xueqing smiled contemptuously. Suddenly, like a phoenix soaring into the sky, her body rose steadily and reached a height of several hundred meters, almost the same height as the helicopter. She looked down at the Sea Maiden and the super armor warriors. Since you're here, let's fight. She's afraid. She's afraid of my tsunami attack. Below, the Sea Maiden's eyes were full of contempt. The matriarch is afraid that they'll destroy the dam and cause a tsunami. So, she deliberately raised the battlefield. This way, they can only shoot up. In the helicopter, Hu Qingtian's face was full of admiration. Yes. Beside him, Qinyang nodded. What are you waiting for? Let's fight. Hu Qingtian glanced at Zhao Yuankuan, Wei Feilong, and a few other top experts behind him. Everyone pressed a mirror-like device on their chests. Suddenly, a square-shaped package on their backs seemed to come alive and changed rapidly. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Metal pieces flew out from their backs and floated on their chests, abdomens, arms, and heads. In the next moment, with soft cracking sounds, many metal pieces quickly meshed together, tightly wrapping them up. Many of the cabinet members were shocked to discover that, all of a sudden, they turned into fully armored warriors. These armors flickered with golden light and were simple in design. However, they emitted a powerful and domineering aura, as if divine soldiers had descended from the heavens. Celestial armor. For the first time, he appeared in front of everyone in shock. At the same time, in one of the helicopters, Qing Linzi let out a sharp whistle and muttered something. Boo! One after another, the green-scaled fire owls flew over from afar. Their wings, which were several meters long, were connected together like clouds in the sky. Maybe she wants to borrow the power of the military helicopter? At this time, a Blue Storm warrior in super armor looked at Zhao Xueqing with contempt. But even a missile explosion can't kill us. Don't care about the helicopter, kill it. The sea girl slowly raised her right hand that was covered in sharp spikes and swung it down. Zhao Xueqing was one step ahead of them and swooped down from the sky. Zhao Xueqing's speed was extremely fast, like a ghost. Several super-armored warriors raised their electromagnetic guns and locked onto Zhao Xueqing within a second. Electric currents as thick as an arm shot toward Zhao Xueqing at 10 times the speed of sound. The speed of sound was 340 meters per second. 10 times the speed of sound was 3,400 meters per second. And Zhao Xueqing was only 1,000 meters away from them. From the time they fired to hitting Zhao Xueqing, it was theoretically less than 1/3 of a second. This speed was faster than most missiles. As for the speed of artillery shells, it was simply incomparable. In the blink of an eye, the 3 dazzling lightning bolts were less than a meter away from Zhao Xueqing. They were like lightning dragons that were about to strangle her. In fact, the moment they fired, Zhao Xueqing had already sensed the danger. The violence contained in these lightning bolts even surpassed Zhang Qianlei and Zeus' lightning network and lightning sea. It was comparable to the attack of a human immortal. Boom! In that instant, Zhao Xueqing's pretty face was expressionless. Her mind instantly entered a mysterious state. All of her divine sense spread out into the sea of heaven and earth's spiritual qi and connected with it. Every trace of the lightning, every angle, and even the changes in the water vapor clearly entered her sea of consciousness. Boom! The true essence in her body boiled like an ocean. The aura of the immortal body of the pure phoenix rose like a dragon, releasing a dazzling light. The immortal body of the pure phoenix was crystal clear. Blood flowed endlessly in her meridians like a surging river. An indomitable divine phoenix phantom that was dozens of meters tall enveloped her. Screech! A sharp screech sounded. The divine phoenix phantom flapped its wings. Zhao Xueqing shattered the void and teleported. Phoenix dances in the 9 heavens. Zhao Xueqing's skirt fluttered, and her long sleeves flew across the air. Her seemingly weak and delicate body spun at an incredible angle, forcefully dodging the 3 electromagnetic energies. How is this possible? The sea maiden screamed like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Everyone else turned pale. That's an electromagnetic gun personally created by the descendants of the celestial gods. It can kill gods and immortals, surpass 10 times the speed of sound, and raise the temperature of all things. Even if it's titanium alloy, it can even pierce through a cruiser. Some of the super armor warriors exclaimed in disbelief. "Stop screaming! She's coming!" The sea maiden swung her right hand with a serious expression. Just like Wolverine's transformation, 5 sharp metal blades emerged from the back of his hand. In fact, when Zhao Xueqing dodged the electromagnetic gun, she had already used the Phoenix Dance of the 9 Heavens movement technique to accelerate. After dodging the electromagnetic guns, her body was like a peerlessly sharp sword, easily crossing the distance of 1,000 meters and killing her way into the super-armored warriors. Chapter 771. Clang. Zhao Xueqing stomped down on the helmet of a super-armor warrior that was charging at her. Boom. Everyone saw a sea of blood appear in the glass cover. The flames under the metal boots suddenly burst, and the next moment, the super-armor warrior fell into the surging river. Her seemingly delicate shoulder was lightly touched. The other super-armor warrior was like a bird that had been hit by a high-speed train. He flew hundreds of meters away, and a mist of blood seeped out from the gaps in his armor. He died instantly. Her sparkling and translucent fist gently pulled back. Zhao Xueqing's fist looked very small and soft, like a magnolia flower bud. It was not intimidating at all. But the next moment, the jade-white fist suddenly moved forward, cutting through the curtain of rain. The intense friction between the fist and the air created a high temperature that vaporized the raindrops instantly. With a crackling sound, clouds of white mist bloomed in the air. Clang. The fist landed on a metal round shield. Strange and complicated patterns were engraved on the metal round shield. They were very obscure, ancient, and sci-fi, as if they were something from outer space. The round shield did not shatter, only leaving a shallow dent in the shape of a fist. The round shield jumped up and hit the super armor warrior's jaw and neck heavily. At a closer distance, it could be seen that the armor on their bodies was not a single piece. The metal pieces were connected by a special black fabric. This fabric did not belong to any known fiber or chemical material in the world. It was between a liquid and solid state, as if it had a life of its own. It could reassemble and transform in an instant. It should have been artificially created using some kind of advanced biological technology. In fact, when tested in Bell Labs, this special fabric could withstand cannon fodder attacks and withstand temperatures of a few thousand degrees. But at this moment, under the tremendous force of the metal shield, these fabrics were torn apart like paper and fluttered in the air. This super armor warrior's jaw and throat were all shattered by the round shield, and he died in an extremely simple manner. Fresh blood flowed onto the metal round shield and dyed the complicated lines into a thin red line. At this moment, Mila was so shocked that her soul almost left her body. Zhao Xueqing's attack was simple and straightforward, instantly killing 2 super armor warriors. It had to be known that these first-generation super armors were developed by the Celestial God Corporation. They were made from titanium alloy and plants, and they also had the most advanced shock-absorbing and compression systems. A thought appeared in the Sea Maiden's mind. The Sea Lady and the other 3 Grade 10 physical ability users were wearing second-generation super armors. It was made of aerospace alloy, which was tougher than titanium alloy. It should be able to withstand Zhao Xueqing's attack. But at this moment, she was not willing to take the risk. The cooperation agreement between Blue Storm and the Dark Council was that Blue Storm was responsible for creating the flood to restrain Sky Army, while the Dark Council was responsible for direct combat. But now, they were the ones who were caught in the crossfire. They were at a disadvantage. Besides, they had already completed their mission. There was no need for them to clash head-on with Zhao Xueqing and the others. Ooh! The doors of the military helicopters opened one after another, and Huaqing Tian led many heavenly military experts down. They were wearing sky-heavy armor, and their speed of descent was extremely fast. It was as if they would hit the ground the next moment. Screech! But suddenly, one by one, the green-scaled fire owls spread their wings and flew over, steadily catching their respective masters. Stop them! Leave no one alive! Riding on his familiar mount, Huaqing raised the god-slaying spear high and roared fiercely. Qing Linzi squeezed the green-scaled fiery owls under him and led hundreds of fiery owls toward Mila and the others. For the past few days, the Sky Army soldiers had been exhausted by the flood, and their morale had been low. Now that they had seen the culprit who created the flood, their spirits and morale instantly returned to their bodies and were stimulated to the extreme. There was also a monstrous fighting spirit and anger. The fiery owls swept across like clouds, their wings covering the sky. The Sky Army's momentum was unstoppable. Qing Linzi commanded the Sky Army's green-scaled fiery owls to split into 3 torrents and surrounded the Blue Storm experts. What kind of aircraft is that? It looks like a type of big bird. But how can it be so fast? It can even break the sound barrier. Do intelligence officers eat shit? They don't even know that they have such an aircraft? Seeing this, the Sea Lady and the Super Armor Warriors were all shocked. Their fighting spirit had already been suppressed by Zhao Xueqing to the point that it was like tofu. Now that they saw this frightening big bird, they were even more frightened. Retreat! The Sea Lady's feet stepped on the air, and she didn't even turn around. Her metal boots shot out green flames like a rocket, and she flew backward as fast as lightning. Following her order, all the Blue Storm's super-armored warriors stepped on flames and switched from the rear to the front. They fired at the Sky Army with their electromagnetic guns while flying backward in an orderly manner at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, the billions of raindrops in the sky turned into sharp water arrows under Mila's control and shot toward the Sky Army's air cavalry. After all, the Sky Armor was personally created by Jiang Tian. Other than the electromagnetic guns, all other attacks were useless. The Sky Army quickly closed in and surrounded the Super Armor Warriors. Their spears pierced through the void, their weapons glowed, and their swords flashed, shooting down the Super Armor Warriors one by one. Since you're here, then stay here forever. In the sky, Zhao Xueqing sneered. She waved her right hand, and a black light shot out like a black lightning bolt. Mila's second-generation armor allowed her to fly at twice the speed of sound, but that black light actually exceeded it by 2 to 3 times the speed of sound. This was a black iron shuttle. When Jiang Tian left Sidoni, he was worried that she did not have a suitable weapon, so he left it with Zhao Xueqing. Seeing this black iron shuttle flying toward her, Mila's expression changed drastically. She was afraid that this black light would turn her into dust if it hit her. Block it! She roared and placed the circular shield in front of her chest. At the same time, 6 first-generation super armor warriors raised their shields and blocked in front of her. Thump! The black iron flying shuttle pierced through the shield, causing the armored warrior to spit out a mouthful of blood and fall to the ground. Then, like a black iron flying shuttle, it pierced through the shields of the 5 warriors in an instant and sent them flying in the air like scraps of paper. Their special glass masks were stained with blood and dripping down. Apparently, none of these super armor warriors had survived. However, after being blocked by the 6 super armor warriors, the black iron shuttle did not have much strength left when it struck Mila's shield. Clang! A loud sound rang out. Mila's shield and body both shook. The Sea Maiden didn't die. Instead, she took advantage of the situation and borrowed the force of the recoil to escape into the distance at an even faster speed. At this time, Zhao Xueqing was about to give chase after throwing the shuttle, but her figure suddenly paused and she turned to look at an inconspicuous super armor warrior. This super armor warrior's special glass mask was black, and his face could not be seen clearly. Only his eyes were incomparably bright, like 2 divine lamps that had been shining for eons, projecting a cold yet dazzling radiance. No one saw that behind the black mask, his face was rapidly aging, and he was rapidly becoming thinner. Moreover, his hands were not covered by armor like the others. Instead, they were exposed to the air. Therefore, one could see that his hands were translucent like glue, and the blue blood vessels and bones inside could be seen clearly. His hands were forming mysterious hand seals that did not seem to belong to any known cultivation system. Seeing his eyes that were like divine lamps, Zhao Xueqing's mind was in turmoil, and her face suddenly turned pale. The black iron shuttle that was originally going to pierce Mila almost lost control. Zhao Xueqing's delicate body swayed twice in the air. Professor's father, Kane, one of the founders of Blue Storm and a high-ranking member of the Universe Shield. He has a quarter of the deity bloodline. In order to avenge his son, he's burning his essence, blood, and spiritual power. Zhao Xueqing is dead for sure. What a pity! Rumor has it that Kong Teichu has already died in the Sword Mound. Otherwise, he would also be here. Many thoughts appeared in Mila's mind, and then she made a prompt decision and waved her hand. Kill Zhao Xueqing. Protect the matriarch. Kill that guy with the black mask. What Qing Tian realized that Zhao Xueqing was in a disadvantageous situation. With a shake of the Godslayer's spear, he sent an armored warrior flying while shouting with all his might. The other party seemed to have an extremely powerful spiritual type expert who did not hesitate to burn his lifespan and spiritual power to suppress the matriarch's magic power. Under such circumstances, Zhao Xueqing's strength fell sharply. Relying on her physical body alone, it was very likely that she would be killed by the electromagnetic gun. Many of the Sky Troop aerial cavalry roared and controlled the green-scaled fire owls to split into two groups. Dozens of people rushed toward Zhao Xueqing, forming a human shield to firmly encircle Zhao Xueqing. Dozens of people charged toward the strange man with the black mask. At this time, many Blue Storm soldiers also fired their electromagnetic guns. Countless electromagnetic energy pierced through the void, burning the rain, and strangling Zhao Xueqing and the others. Bang, bang, bang. The celestial armor was very strong and could block most of the electromagnetic energy, but the physical impact was no small matter. One after another, the Sky Troop aerial cavalry soldiers were sent flying, their mouths stained with blood. But no one retreated. They continued to press forward, unafraid of death, and intercepted the electromagnetic energy without hesitation. At this time, they were not afraid of death. They only knew that they were Master Kang's disciples and students, and Zhao Xueqing was Master Kang's lover. How could they watch as Zhao Xueqing died? The people in the fierce battle did not notice that at this time, a military helicopter was flying in from afar. To these super experts, the military helicopter was almost a negligible threat. Suddenly, the door of the helicopter opened. Bush, bush, bush. One after another, flying swords cut through the raindrops, tore through the curtain of rain, and pulled out streaks of white turbulence as they broke through the air. A total of 9 flying swords slashed toward the armored warrior with the black mask at 3 times the speed of sound. Chapter 772. Hua Xia's Flying Swords. A disdainful snort came from behind the black mask. He boldly raised his hand and grabbed at the air with his translucent palm. Suddenly, the flying swords were suspended 10 meters in front of him like rockets that had lost their power. The 9 flying swords seemed to have been immobilized and could not move forward at all. It seemed that they would fall in the next moment. Explode! In the distance, a sharp and cold shout came from the helicopter that had just joined the battlefield. The hilts of the 9 flying swords suddenly burst out with bright lightning. The 9 lightning bolts formed a lightning dragon about 10 meters long and as thick as a bucket. It rushed out with its teeth and claws bared, completely enveloping the black-masked man. There's still lightning? The professor's father let out a surprised and shrill scream. He did not have time to cast a spell to summon his life-saving means. His flesh and bones turned into powder in an instant, and he died. Could it be that Zhang Daozhang is back? At this time, hearing the explosion, Zhao Xueqing suddenly turned her head to look at the person on the helicopter who killed the professor's father with the second-generation flying sword that belonged to Zhang Qianlei. Her black hair brushed past her gentle face, covering her surprised eyes. She did not expect to see Tang Linglong in Sidoni. Seeing so many heavenly army soldiers disregarding their own safety and flying in front of Zhao Xueqing to act as meat shields, Tang Linglong felt a sense of loss in her heart. Or it could be said that the sense of loss in her heart was unprecedentedly severe. After she took off from Huaxia's Yanjing and arrived in Sidoni, she was burning with anxiety. She was in a hurry and did not look at Sidoni carefully. After taking off from Tianqing School, she thought that she was going to see Zhao Xueqing. Her heart calmed down and she was in the mood to look at the grass and trees in Sidoni. The flood reached the heavens and the rain poured down, but the people of Sidoni did not retreat. Hundreds of thousands of people fought alongside the Sky Army to resist the flood. Among them, there were ordinary people like Zhang San, Li Si, and Wang Wu. There were elites like Bai Qiufei, Tang Shaozi, and Chancellor Andrew. There were also martial arts experts like Hu Qingtian. When she passed by the highest peak of Mount Surad, Jiuxiao Peak, she suddenly saw a huge building. On Ninth Cloud Peak, hundreds of steel pillars as thick as the huge pillars of the Parthenon were deeply embedded in the earth and the woods within a radius of 10 square miles. On the platform that was supported by iron pillars in the style of steampunk, there was a huge metal flower that looked like a sunflower or a lotus. Its petals were stacked, and it had a radius of 1 kilometer, occupying half of the sky. On this building, the construction workers were densely packed, like ants on a huge palace. Under the steel monster, there was a group of white buildings. They were probably temporary housing for the construction workers. Compared to the steel monster, they were as delicate as a few blocks of building blocks. The alien was more than 3 kilometers high from the ground. It was like a huge palm that opened to the sky, and it had an extraordinary power. Even if Tang Linglong was overlooking this building from a helicopter hundreds of meters above the ground. However, compared to this gigantic steel monster, she still felt tiny as an ant. Even if the Eiffel Tower of Paris was moved here, it would look like a small toy. Tang Linglong was shocked and had difficulty breathing. She was about to ask Sasaki Kaisha what it was. Suddenly, she heard a sound. It was a low and vigorous buzzing sound, so vigorous and powerful that even the high-speed rotation of the helicopter's propeller was suppressed. Above the Kuelian, blue electric sparks spurted out. At a height of thousands of meters, the sea of clouds emitted a faint blue light. The light was very weak, but it made her skin itch. At this time, in the mountain forest, a black shadow spiraled into the sky. Tang Linglong didn't expect there to be so many birds in the depths of the Sidoni jungle. Then, a scene that made her heart skip a beat appeared. Those birds suddenly disappeared. They should have been vaporized in an instant. Not even a drop of dust was left. This is the Kuelian defense strike system jointly designed by Master Kong and Mr. Zhang Chenjian. Sasaki Kaisha introduced. It took more than a year and more than $10 billion to build. This is their daily experiment. It seems that this time, it didn't succeed. They have tested it hundreds of times. What is this used for? Tang Linglong asked. Sidoni's national defense and global attack. Sasaki Kaisha said lightly, it can even hit space satellites in outer space. Far more powerful than nuclear weapons. She stretched herself and sighed casually. In order to raise funds to build this Kuelian defense strike system, Mistress sold all her gold and silver jewelry. Tang Linglong lowered her eyes and was silent for a long time. When the Kuelian defense strike system was gradually left behind by the helicopter, she couldn't help but look back and ask, what technology are they using? How would I know such a top secret? This is a secret controlled by the Refining Hall and the Sidoni Academy of Sciences. Sasaki Kaisha smiled. A country is much more complicated than a sect. There are a lot of rules. Otherwise, the secret would have been leaked long ago. But I've heard from the people in the Academy of Sciences that it's called refusion technology. In short, it's using jade, crystals, and other raw materials to form energy. On the way, Tang Linglong was lost in thought. She didn't talk anymore, but her heart was already in turmoil. She didn't expect that Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing had already pushed Sidoni to such a high position and led everyone to such a great height. Compared with Jiang Tian's earth-shattering achievements, Her love affair was really not worth mentioning. As the woman behind Jiang Tian, Zhao Xueqing had been under unimaginable pressure and sacrificed a lot. Therefore, when she saw that Zhao Xueqing was in danger above Cass Lake, Tang Linglong had an indescribable feeling in her heart. There was a bit of jealousy, a bit of respect, a bit of pity, and a bit of regret that she didn't want to admit. But in the next moment, her eyes were fixed on the warrior in the black glass mask. At this time, she didn't know that the man was Professor's father, one of the founders of the Blue Storm, a leader of the Universe Shield, and even a descendant of the heavenly deities. However, her divine sense had sensed the danger of this person before Hua Qingtian did, and she sensed his powerful spiritual power. Tang Linglong concluded that he was the key to the Blue Storm's operation, not the Sea Girl. Therefore, she decided to kill this person first. During the time when Jiang Tian was in seclusion at the ancient Wudong, Zhang Qianlei and Tang Linglong became friends despite their age difference. Zhang Qianlei was also a braggart, so he gave her a lot of disposable flying swords and taught her how to control lightning. At this moment, she didn't hesitate to use 9 disposable flying swords, the kind that carried lightning. In fact, Professor's father had fought countless battles and had once fought with sword control and flying sword techniques. Therefore, he took the initiative in a second and controlled the 9 disposable flying swords. But he didn't expect that this thing was a double kick with lightning. He was instantly electrocuted into a cloud of flying ash. Zhao Xueqing, who was drowsy and extremely tired, regained clarity the moment Professor's father died. Her magic power and divine abilities surged like a tide and poured into her body. The next moment, the black iron shuttle that was about to fall to the ground soared into the sky like a raging dragon that had just woken up. At a speed faster than lightning, from an unbelievable angle, the sword pierced through the many water curtains and super armor of the sea wolf before piercing through her chest. The sea girl's body exploded. Half of it turned into flowing water, while the other half turned into a rain of sparkling flesh that scattered on the ground. The army was defeated like a landslide. The Blue Storm experts fled like stray dogs, but they were intercepted and surrounded by the Sky Army's air cavalry. Zhao Xueqing's originally unsteady footsteps suddenly became steady. She raised her eyebrows slightly and quickly poured in her true essence. Her figure rushed forward, pulled out the belt in the middle of her plain skirt, and swung it out. The soft belt was filled with an unparalleled amount of true essence and instantly became extremely tough. Like the sharpest sword, it sent many super armor warriors flying like golf balls. Every super armor warrior who was hit had blood stains on the glass mask and the special fabric between the gaps of their armor. She punched out again and again. Although her fists looked delicate, they were filled with power that made people tremble in fear. They had the power of a mountain crashing down. With every punch, a super armor warrior would explode along with their armor. Her belt was like iron, and her fist was as heavy as a mountain. At the same time, the black iron flying shuttle curved in the air and chased after the Blue Storm members who had fled into the distance like maggots. Clang, clang, clang. Amidst the continuous explosions, the black iron flying shuttle pierced through the fish that escaped the net one by one. A rain of blood fell, and pieces of armor flew everywhere. In a short 10 minutes, the super armor army of Blue Storm had all died on the spot. The torrential rain that had lasted for several days finally stopped. In the sky, the dark clouds dispersed, revealing a delightful shade of blue. Bright rays of sunlight poured down. Long live, absolute beginning, long live the God Empress. Below, Zhang Sen, Li Si, and thousands of Sidoni's people immediately kowtowed on the ground, prostrating themselves and shouting "Long live the God Empress," as if they were loyal believers seeing their god. The crowd was so densely packed that one couldn't see the end of it. Moreover, even more people rushed over to pay their respects, and their praises were like thunderclaps that shot into the sky, spreading for miles. Hua Qingtian, salvage all the super armor warriors and transport them to the sex refining hall. Also, cooperate with the National Academy of Sciences for analysis. Zhao Xueqing's order had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. Many experts moved, and the National Academy of Sciences immediately rushed to the scene. Zhao Xueqing had already landed on the dam and then walked toward the unconscious Wang Wu, a trace of regret on her face. Chapter 773. God Empress, he's probably not going to make it. He's been dead for a long time. Zhang San sighed. He can still be saved. Zhao Xueqing crouched down and hugged the mud-covered Wang Wu. She pressed one hand against his back and used her art to force the dirty water out of his mouth. Everyone was moved to the point tears welled up in their eyes when they saw this, and all of them knelt on the ground and kowtowed madly. In their eyes, Zhao Xueqing was not human, but a god from the heavens. If Jiang Tian was the sky of Genesis, then Zhao Xueqing was Mother Earth, supreme and worshipped. But at this moment, she was willing to save a lazy drunkard. At this moment, in their eyes, Zhao Xueqing's body seemed to be exuding a holy light. Zhao Xueqing's slender fingers pried open his mouth and fed him a pill, using the humane phoenix heart art to refine it. 10 minutes later, Wang Wu still had not woken up. His face was still purple. Zhao Xueqing still did not give up. Her true essence madly flowed into his body, causing a white mist to rise from his body. Another 15 minutes passed. Zhao Xueqing's hands trembled and sweat poured down her face. She seemed to be exerting great effort. Suddenly, her delicate body shook violently. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Mistress, give up. The dead can't be revived." Chen Yang dropped to his knees and pleaded with tears in his eyes. "Mistress, take care of your body. Mistress, preserving your strength is more important. There's still a great battle to come." Huaqing Tian, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankuan, and the other Heaven Army soldiers also dropped to their knees and cried out. "Mistress, don't hold on. You've just been through a great battle and have expended too much energy." Many cabinet members and the people who had heard the news also dropped to their knees, their eyes brimming with tears as they urged her. "All of you, get up. His soul is still here. It's just that his body is faking death." Zhao Xueqing's pale face was extremely calm. She used her art and poured her true essence into Wang Wu's body as if it was free. At this moment, the entire place was silent. No one uttered another word. Only tears of gratitude flowed freely and surged in their hearts. Suddenly Wang Wuga. He took a deep breath and his body twitched violently a few times before he came back to life. "All right, I'm alive." Zhao Xueqing smiled. She relaxed and fell backward. Sasaki Kaisha hurriedly supported her, tears falling like rain. "Mistress, are you okay?" "It's just a weak body. It's all right." Zhao Xueqing swallowed a few pellets and smiled. "Get a helicopter and send him to the hospital." "You're here?" Zhao Xueqing looked at Tang Linglong calmly. She thought that this girl would retort and ask why she couldn't come. Then, Zhao Xueqing could talk about Jiang Tian, who was besieged by the sword catacomb and whose fate was unknown. Then they could talk about some serious topics. Unexpectedly, Tang Linglong was silent for a full 5 seconds. She actually walked to Zhao Xueqing and kowtowed, saying respectfully, "Tang Linglong, Hall Master of the Ancient Martial Arts Hall of Tianqing School, greets Mistress. I'm at Mistress's disposal." Zhao Xueqing calmly helped her up, then said lightly, "Good. Now is the time when we need people. You came just in time." Tang Linglong had already learned a lot of core information on the way here. At this moment, she volunteered, "Sister Qingya, I'm willing to go to Europe to rescue Jiang Bengxia and the others." "You're not going to the sword catacomb to save your master? Aren't you worried about him?" Zhao Xueqing said with a faint smile. "After seeing Sister Qingya and the heavenly army annihilate the blue storm, I'm very confident in my master now." Tang Linglong said seriously, "On the other hand, the kidnapping of Jiang Bengxia and the others will make us hesitate. It will affect the war situation and shake the morale of the army. Now that Hong Meng is not out, the enemy is invading. The semi-hidden sects of Huaxia are also in danger." Zhao Xueqing said calmly, "Your master asked you to stay in the Ancient Martial Arts Hall to help Yi Zhantian and the Long Formation Guard Huaxia. Sister Qing, Huaxia is a superpower after all. Who dares to provoke it?" Tang Linglong said, and the long formation strength is rising steadily. They don't need me at all. Zhao Xueqing pondered for a moment, then finally nodded and said, all right, you go now. Wait. Zhao Xueqing took out the god's bone finger dagger from the storage ring and handed it over. She said calmly, this was left by your master. Take it for self-defense. Thank you, Sister Qingya. Lingling, you're getting more and more comfortable calling me Sister Qingya. Have you forgotten that I'm your master's wife? Zhao Xueqing said with a faint smile. The enemy is right in front of us. Sister Qingya, let's not care about these details, shall we? Tang Linglong smiled faintly and said meaningfully. Yes, the enemy is right. Let's put the country's affairs first. Zhao Xueqing gave her a few more protective jade talismans and artifacts. Tang Linglong suddenly realized that Zhao Xueqing understood her and Jiang Tian's thoughts very well. Therefore, she suddenly understood why Jiang Tian was so loyal to Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing turned to Huaqing Tian and said, Old Hua, take Zhao Yuankuan, Wei Feilong and 20 other transcendent grandmasters back to Huaxia and help Yi Zhantian. Mistress. Huaqing Tian hesitated. Now that the gathering of darkness had appeared, and with the help of top organizations such as Blue Storm, Sidoni was the most dangerous. Don't forget that Sidoni was founded with the support of Huaxia. That is his homeland. Zhao Xueqing's face was firm and determined. We will follow Mistress's orders. After a moment of silence, everyone's face brightened and they all bowed. After Jiang Tian entered the sword catacomb, he had not come out for more than 3 months. Many overlords began to feel restless. Many overlords speculated that he must have been trapped in the sword catacomb and the one-day imprisonment array. Otherwise, he would have come out long ago. The fall of Kong Teichu marked the beginning of a great war. Rumors of Sidoni in the Dark World spread like wildfire. On the night of June 1, 2011, in the suburbs of Yanjin. On the surface, this place looked like an ordinary factory. However, only a few people knew that this was the base of the long formation. The rain was heavy. Boom! A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. Bush, bush. Kikik! Today, I will destroy the entire dragon group. After all, they killed at least 100 blood breeds in Huaxia. The leader was Duke Dracula, who was as powerful as an immortal state warrior. This time, he led dozens of kindred overlords to fight against the martial arts families and sects in Huaxia. He had killed many martial arts overlords and gained a lot. Suddenly, a figure with a dragon-like aura soared into the sky from the dragon group's encampment. He held a long sword in his hand and stood proudly in the void. Vile spawn, how can my magnificent Huaxia be tainted by the likes of you? The 4 spiritual generals, the group of 8, and other overlords of the long formation came out from their hiding places and surrounded the kindred. Yi Zhantian, you are only half a step away from the immortal state. You are no match for me. Duke Dracula was not afraid at all. He laughed wildly. Admit your defeat, kneel down and kowtow to me. Then I will bite you and you will be my blood slave. What do you think? Is that so? Yi Zhantian snorted coldly. Without another word, he struck out with his sword. Clang! The sword radiance spanned over 100 meters. More than 10 members of the blood race were killed and their heads were sent flying. Dracula hurriedly retreated, but a large wound was left on his chest, from which blood dripped down. Dracula used the secret art of the kindred to heal the wound, but he still stared at Yi Zhantian in disbelief. You have reached the immortal state? No. I am half a step away from the immortal state. Yi Zhantian roared and punched Dracula. The punch sent him flying dozens of meters away and half of his body exploded. Kill all the kindred. Leave no one alive. The Black Tortoise's iron fists were like mountains, crushing a count-level vampire with a single punch. He let out a loud roar, his aura as imposing as a mountain. Those who offend the Huaxia will be killed. Red Sparrow snorted and walked forward with her sword, decapitating one kindred overlord after another. The battle left a trail of corpses and rivers of blood. The kindred screamed in agony. Fortunately, there were not many residents in the suburbs. Otherwise, the screams of the kindred overlords would leave a lasting scar in their hearts. Duke Dracula invaded the Long Formation base and was killed by Yi Zhantian and the generals of the Long Formation. When this news spread, the entire world was shocked. Yi Zhantian is half a step away from the immortal state? That's too fast. Not only that, Yi Zhantian killed Duke Dracula and killed 63 kindred overlords who invaded the Huaxia Long Formation. None of them survived. Under Yi Zhantian's leadership, the Huaxia Long Formation went after the henchmen of the Gathering of Darkness in Huaxia. Everyone was shocked. They thought that since Kang Teichu was not in Huaxia, most of the overlords had gone to Sidoni and Huaxia was weak. Who would have thought that a half step away from the immortal state would appear out of nowhere? But soon after, a piece of news shook the underground world like a nuclear explosion, leaving everyone dumbfounded. Yi Zhantian has joined the Tianqing school and is now Kang Teichu's disciple. It was Kang Teichu who pushed him to the immortal state and half step away from the immortal state. The name of the Tianqing school shocked the world. Yi Zhantian, the son of Yi Tianren and the leader of the Long Formation, was willing to be Kang Teichu's disciple. Moreover, there were rumors that Yi Zhantian had been stuck at the immortal state for many years. He had occupied the Long Formation for so many years but still could not make a breakthrough. It was obvious that he did not have the opportunity to break through to the immortal state. But now, Kang Teichu had pushed him to the immortal state. He was now on par with Zhang Qianlei, the Taoist master of the Republic of China and the sect leader of the semi-hidden faction. Everyone was more convinced of Kang Teichu's power. He is so powerful. Is he really dead? This thought appeared in many people's minds, and they were no longer so certain. Then, Hu Qingtian, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankuan, and other overlords arrived and joined the defense of Huaxia. The three of them were all above the immortal state. Their murderous aura was so strong that it made people's hearts palpitate. In the grassland of Inner Mongolia, Hu Qingtian led a group of overlords to pursue the young prince of the wolf tribe and other overlords of the wolf tribe. Chapter 774. Break. Hu Qingtian's hair and beard fluttered in the wind. The god-killing spear pierced through the air like a dragon emerging from the sea. The spear seemed to have the power to overturn rivers and seas. It pierced through the heart of the wolf prince, who was as powerful as an immortal state warrior, and then slaughtered all his henchmen. Clank! A few days after Hu Qingtian killed the wolf prince in the Qin Creek, Zhao Yuankuan was enraged. He swung the crimson blade and killed an elder priest of the Covenant of Darkness, who was as powerful as a half-step immortal state warrior. In the Miao village in Xiangxi, Wei Feilong led the group of heroes. Wearing the heavenly armor made by Jiang Tian and wearing the protective jade talismans, they slaughtered the dozen or so grand wizards of the Dark Parliament as if they were vegetables. None of them were spared. These evil Western priests had come to incite the grand wizards of the Miao land to rebel against Huaxia. Now, even the grand wizards of the Miao land were killed. But this was only the beginning. In the Tulip Mansion in London, England, a girl in an azure Taoist robe and carrying a long sword broke into the Tulip Mansion and killed the blood ancestor named Cage with the god's finger bone dagger in her hand. Then she killed 8 powerful vampires and grand wizards and left with Jiang Bangxia and the others who were under house arrest. In the fierce battle with the British military police who came to intercept them, this charming and lovely girl in a Taoist robe, who seemed to be in her early 20s, showed a combat power that was not inferior to the immortal state. She cut an armored car in half with a slash of her sword. Many people couldn't believe it. Some of the blood ancestors in Europe were strong and some were weak, but the weakest one was as powerful as an immortal state warrior. But then, blood ancestor Cage was killed by a young girl. Had she surpassed the immortal state? That was unbelievable. Later, news came out that the girl was called Tang Linglong and she was Kang Teichu's senior disciple. Even Yi Zhantian, Hu Qingtian and the others had to address her as senior sister. On the same day, Ancient Wudang also announced that Ancient Wudang had changed its name to Tianqing School's Ancient Wudang branch. It would fight alongside the Huaxia Long Formation, declare war on the Covenant of Darkness, resist the foreign powerhouses, and protect the safety of Huaxia. But this was not the most shocking part. After that, the Singapore Chinese Association announced to the world that it was now the Tianqing School's Singapore branch. It represented the Tianqing School in controlling Singapore, suppressing Southeast Asia, and declaring war on the European Dark Parliament. Immediately afterward, the Taoist temple master of South Korea's Tanjun Taoist Temple, the nation's goddess, Lee Junju, announced the reorganization of the Tianqing School's Tanjun branch and declared war on the Covenant of Darkness. When this news came out, the whole world was shocked. One must know that Tanjung is the common religion of the South Koreans. He is almost like a religion and a god. He has been rooted in South Korea for thousands of years and can influence the decisions of the government. It was shocking that such a large organization would voluntarily become the Tianqing School's branch. After that, Sasaki Aisha represented the Cherry Blossom Society, Ishii Yurin represented the Yamaguchi Gumi, the Fucking Gang, the Great Circle, and many others. One by one, the superpowers around the world announced that they would become the Tianqing School's branch and declare war on the Covenant of Darkness. They would hunt down the members of the Covenant of Darkness on a global scale. When Saudi and France went to war, these organizations were actually involved, but they only supported in the dark and did not expose themselves. This time, all of them revealed themselves and revealed their true colors. Many overlords were shocked. The Tianqing School's enormous power and Sidonie, the sixth most powerful country in the world, were no match for them. Moreover, there were many immortal state overlords and half-step human deities. Even the Hong sect and Kunlun sect were nothing compared to them. On this day, the Taiching School's name shook the entire dark world. Many overlords who were hiding in the dark felt a chill run down their spines. Kong Teichu's plan was too far-sighted and thorough. He had cultivated such a powerful force behind the scenes. Even if he'd really perished like the legends said, the general situation had already been established. The colossus that was the Heavenly Clear sect was already filled with geniuses, and experts were as numerous as trees in the forest. What were the chances of the Dark Parliament winning? After all, the Tianqing School had taken the initiative to attack the Covenant of Darkness. They had killed the Blood Ancestor and the Little Prince of the Wolf tribe of the Grassland before the war even began. However, the Covenant of Darkness was far more powerful than anyone had imagined. Therefore, Blood Ancestor Ali announced the start of the war through the dark web and other overlords' forums. The time has come for the final ultimatum. The Tianqing School did not admit their guilt and accept our trial. Instead, they attacked us first and killed many members of the Covenant of Darkness. Therefore, we have no choice but to fight a just war. Sidonie did not heed our warning to expel the Tianqing School and Kong Teichu's henchmen. Therefore, we cannot avoid unnecessary casualties. He raised his arms and shouted, full of murderous intent. Next, the Covenant of Darkness will attack Sidonie at any time and destroy the Tianqing School and all his henchmen. The situation outside was changing rapidly, and the war was on the verge of breaking out. In the Sword Catacomb, Jiang Tian had been on the verge of a breakthrough after taking the Red Flame Fate pill and refining it for several days. Boom! The milk-like spiritual marrow liquid rippled and splashed like pearls falling on a jade plate. Streams of extremely rich and abundant spiritual qi poured into Jiang Tian's head like white dragons. Jiang Tian also revealed the Dharma form of the indestructible golden body. It was 100 meters tall and emitted endless golden light. There were 9 spiritual qi dragons in total. Each of them was hundreds of meters long. They broke through the roof and swooped down. They were like 9 giant dragons covering the sky, coiling around Jiang Tian. 9 dragons covering the sky, spiritual qi infusing. At this time, Jiang Tian was surrounded by 9 mighty spiritual qi dragons. He was like a god emperor who carried the eternal blue sky on his back. He was like a Buddha sitting cross-legged on a lotus throne. The aura of immortality pervaded the air, as if there was divinity, and there was a sense of transcendence. He is really going to become an immortal or a god. Situ Shao and Wolf King Alexander were dumbfounded by this scene. It was like a dream. They could see Jiang Tian's extraordinary figure even when they were a few miles away from Jiang Tian. The abundant spiritual qi poured into Jiang Tian's indestructible golden body. Every gunmetal grain was nourished by the spiritual qi. Billions of gunmetal grains and the vast sea of Tao patterns seemed to be evolving and becoming more tenacious. This kind of spiritual qi infusing had been going on for dozens of days. When the spiritual marrow was only half of the original. Suddenly, Jiang Tian snorted and opened his eyes. A purple thunderbolt exploded in Jiang Tian's eyes. The purple thunderbolt suddenly shot a few kilometers away like a thunder punishment from the 9 heavens. A forest was directly shattered and a mountain more than 300 meters high was razed to the ground. Oh my God! Wolf King jumped in fright. Seeing this, Sidu Shao also exclaimed with a solemn face, Master Kang's thunderbolt is probably far more powerful than Zeus's. The more he thought, the more frightened he became. And Zeus's thunder control was actually relying on external forces, some crystals that contained thunder energy, but Master Kang's is real Dharma power. The thunderbolt shooting from his eyes is really terrifying. I've finally stepped into the 9th level of Qi refinement. I didn't expect the divine power to be the purple lightning thunder eyes. Jiang Tian let out a complicated sigh. At this time, the purple thunderbolts suddenly shrank into Jiang Tian's pupils. Around his pupils, a strange purple ring was faintly formed. In the ring, there were strange patterns that seemed to be intertwined with lightning. Perfected Qi refinement level 9. At this time, Jiang Tian's physique, true yuan, spirit, dharma power, and divine power had all reached an unprecedented height. He was only a step away from foundation establishment. And because of this, some of the divine powers that were about to be unlocked in foundation establishment had already begun to show signs and could even be partially used. The reason why the gung metal divine body was the strongest immortal body in the cultivation world, and was even called a divine body, was because its divine powers were infinite and varied. In the foundation establishment stage, there were already 9 transformations of the divine body. In the cultivation world, physiques were also called root bones and spirit roots. Generally, those who had a unique physique of one of the 5 elements were considered cultivation geniuses. They were also called natural spirit roots and their cultivation speed was extremely fast. Dual spirit roots or dual physiques of the 5 elements were geniuses if they were compatible. If they were incompatible, they were trash. Wind, thunder, ice, and darkness were all called variant spirit roots. They were extremely powerful and their cultivation speed was not inferior to celestial spirit roots. They were also called geniuses. Those who had 5 spirit roots of the 5 elements were called pseudo-spirit roots or mixed spirit roots. They basically had no hope of cultivation. According to Jiang Tian's knowledge, there were only a handful of cultivation techniques that were suitable for this bell physique. And even if one had a cultivation technique, they might not be able to successfully cultivate. As for those who had spirit roots of the 5 elements and variant spirit roots, there were only a handful of them in the entire universe. As a result, the cultivation techniques that were suitable for this strange spirit root were a blank slate in many of the more backward cultivation star fields for hundreds of millions of years. Experts with this type of physique were also extremely rare. Those who had this type of physique were basically synonymous with trash. But Jiang Tian had cultivated for tens of thousands of years and had seen too many cultivation techniques. He knew that this type of physique was called the chaotic physique. It was actually very rare and powerful. If one could obtain the cultivation technique, they could also reach unimaginable heights. After Jiang Tian had arrived in the god realm, he had seen a Hongmeng god who had cultivated using this type of physique. Furthermore, his cultivation speed was extremely fast. The foundation establishment chapter of the gung metal divine body technique was suitable for this type of chaotic physique. During the foundation establishment stage, the 9 changes of chaos would be produced. The 5 elements divine powers and 3 variant divine powers would evolve in the body. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, and darkness. These divine powers evolved were extremely powerful and could crush those produced by the same type of heavenly spirit root. Furthermore, they could use the heavenly Tao's law of mutual promotion and restraint to suppress any type of heavenly spirit root powerhouse. Originally, Qi refining stage 9 was very close to the foundation establishment stage. Since the Gung metal divine body was very special, it was very possible to activate the 9 changes of the foundation establishment stage. It was one of the metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, and darkness divine powers. But what Jiang Tian did not expect was that when he broke through to Qi refining stage 9, he actually activated the thunder divine powers of the mutated spirit root in advance. It was not the water divine powers that he had expected. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Sigh, I've already been here for a few months. I don't know if those fellows outside will think that I've fallen and make a move on Sidoni and Tianqing School. A hint of mockery appeared at the corner of Jiang Tian's mouth, and his eyes gradually turned cold. Chapter 775. If Nie Mingyuan really rose from the ashes, Jiang Tian was not afraid. Originally, he had already thought of a few ways to destroy him, let alone now that he had the purple lightning eyes. Even though the purple lightning eye was only a lesser power of the lightning element, it was still invincible on Earth. Moreover, this type of divine ability was extremely young and firm, violent, ferocious, and mighty. It specialized in restraining all sorts of evil, filthy, and gloomy things. Demonic qi, ghosts, great demons, evil spirits, and so on couldn't even stand a chance against this lightning god art. Following Jiang Tian's breakthrough, even though they were still several kilometers away from Jiang Tian, the Wolf King and Sidu Shao could clearly feel a strong wave of mana. They even felt suffocated and had difficulty breathing. The results of Master Kang's seclusion this time are too obvious. His cultivation is too strong now. The moon-worshipping Wolf King, Alexander, was so excited that his entire body was trembling. Once Master Kang comes out of seclusion this time, won't he turn the outside world upside down? Situ Zhao's eyes were filled with excitement, as if he had seen a deity. After pondering for a long time, he sighed. At the very least, he can kill heavenly immortals and sacred venerables. I'm afraid that even the red-robed archbishops would be no match for him. What are you waiting for? Go and take out the European Union and the United States. The moon-worshipping Wolf King couldn't wait any longer. It roared loudly with murderous intent. He was once hunted down by the European Union and the United States. Later, he relied on Russia to gain a slim chance of survival, so he was a little vengeful. I'm afraid Master won't come out this time. He'll have to break through again. After all, this formation is very hard to come by. Situ Shao smiled and shook his head. Another breakthrough? The so-called foundation establishment? The moon-worshipping Wolf King was shocked, and his heart almost exploded. Master Kang was already so strong. If he broke through again, how strong would he become? Indeed, just as Situ Shao had guessed, although Jiang Tian had broken through once, he did not choose to come out of seclusion in the end. Instead, he swallowed a foundation-building pill unhurriedly and sighed with a long gaze. This time acceleration spell formation is just an imitation made by a strong person from Earth. It's very crude and primitive. During the first month and a half, time was still flowing at a rapid speed, but after half a month, the effect of time acceleration was greatly reduced. At first, 1 day was equivalent to 10 years, then to 8 years, to 5 years, to 3 years, and now 1 day is only equivalent to 1 year. I'm afraid that if this formation continues to operate for a few more days, it will consume all of its magic power. That means that I only have a few years left. I hope I can break through to foundation establishment. On the outside, the entire dark world was shaken after Ali's speech. Many overlords around the world turned their attention to Sidoni, Jiuxiao Peak, and Tianqing School. Whether it was the Medicine King Group, Tianqing School, or Sidoni, they were all prepared for the worst. They were ready for the war that could come at any time. The senior executives of the Medicine King Group, Zhang Wanqing, Yi Ziwei, Jiang Zhixing, Su Ruoqing and many others in Huaxia all retreated to the Tianqing school dojo. They were protected by the Zhou Tian Eternity Spell formation. Even if the sky was filled with artillery fire, they would not be harmed at all. When Jiang Zhixing retreated from Huaxia, he was attacked by a large number of overlords from the Dark World. Fortunately, Su Zhenlei, Su Ruoqing, Qing Yi, and the others were fully prepared. With Hua Qingtian's support, they were able to catch the enemy off guard. Jiang Zhixing was not hurt at all after killing 8 Dark World Council overlords. As for the Dark Council, they also took the most forceful action at the first moment. In Huaxia, many overlords from the Dark World retreated and focused on attacking the Amei Sword sect. They killed 3 immortal state overlords in a row, broke the mountain gate, destroyed the mountain protection array, and retreated with many heavenly materials and earthly treasures. When the news spread, the world was in an uproar. How is this possible? Yeah, that's the Amei Sword sect, the top sword cultivator of Mount Shu. Many people could not believe it. Even for many overlords from the Dark World, semi-hidden sects like the Mount Shu Sword sect and the ancient Wudong sect were still powerful existences that could not be blasphemed. These semi-hidden sects had a long history of thousands of years. They had a deep foundation. Their cultivation techniques and divine weapons were as vast as the sea, and their overlords were as numerous as trees in the forest. The members of these sects lived in seclusion deep in the mountains. They did not care about worldly affairs and were engrossed in cultivation. They were like gods in the sky, drinking the wind and drinking the dew. They were high and mighty, and their martial arts and spiritual spells could penetrate the heavens and the earth. It could be said that compared to the Amei Sword sect, the Cherry Blossom Society and the Winter Soldier sect, it was like a 3-year-old child meeting the boxing champion Mike Tyson. They were not on the same level at all. It's the Zhenyu Demon King. He killed a half-step human immortal vice sect leader and 3 immortal state elders with a flick of his finger. The others are impressed. A warrior from Huaxia spread the news. The Zhenyu Demon King is so terrifying. Half-step human immortals and 3 immortal state elders with a flick of his finger. I don't think even Kong Teichu has such a powerful record. Hearing this, everyone gasped and felt that their scalps were about to explode. The Zhenyu Demon King and the Gathering of Darkness are really too powerful. You have to know that the Amei Sword sect is the second most hidden sect in Huaxia, second only to Kunlun. Some overlords trembled. This time, Sidoni and Tianqing School are really in danger. Some martial artists from Huaxia sighed bitterly. Why hasn't Kong Teichu come back yet? Come back quickly. Only he can save the martial arts world in Huaxia. Jiang Tian's loyal fans, Big Saber Bro and the others, were very anxious. They gritted their teeth and suppressed a surge of anger. Nie Mingyuan was too vicious and merciless. He had only been in Huaxia for 3 days, and he had killed more than a dozen grandmasters. Blood flowed like a river. In the end, he led the Gathering of Darkness and brazenly defeated the 2 semi-hidden sects, Diansong and Amei. This was completely different from Jiang Tian. Although Jiang Tian had also killed many people, he never took the initiative to kill. There was always a reason for his actions. According to the principles of Jianghu, he killed people who deserved to be killed. But Nie Mingyuan was different. He only adhered to one principle, which was that a gentleman's wealth was his own ruin. As long as there was something he needed, he would kill and seize it regardless of the consequences. Sometimes, he would even kill for no reason, not for treasure or revenge. It seemed that he was just venting his monstrous anger, as if he wanted to destroy the world. Previously, many martial artists from Huaxia felt that Jiang Tian was ferocious and would kill people at the slightest provocation. He was definitely not a good person. Therefore, they did not join Sidoni to avoid a disaster. But compared with Nie Mingyuan and the powerhouses of the Gathering of Darkness, Jiang Tian was really too kind and gentle. But now they realized that Sidoni seemed to be the safest place. How could they reason with a peerless demon like Nie Mingyuan? Being weak was the original sin of being killed. Later, Nie Mingyuan went to Southeast Asia, America, Africa, the Middle East and other areas to gather more forces. It was said that the number of powerhouses from the dark world who had submitted to him had reached more than 2,000, including many immortal state powerhouses. What was especially infuriating was Nie Mingyuan wantonly killed in Huaxia, killing people and making rivers of blood. But in these areas he did not kill a single powerhouse, nor did he force them. He only bewitched them with evil words or promised them great benefits. When the news reached Yi Zhantian's ears, he sighed. Nie Mingyuan has an extreme hatred for the country and his people. His mentality has been seriously twisted. A few days later, in the central hall of Tianqing School, many overlords were gathered. Zhao Xueqing sat on the stage and held a pre-war meeting. Madam, many tycoons in Sidonia have put pressure on the European Union. The European Union Joint Conference has decided not to send troops after a democratic vote. A local war is basically impossible. Chen Yang reported. Many politicians and tycoons from around the world had settled in the healing immortal village, including many influential tycoons and nobles in Europe. These people had been deeply impressed by the charm of the healing immortal village and were even fighting to get permanent residency. And the last thing they wanted was to see a war between the European Union and Sidonia, and the last thing they wanted was to see the Tianqing School and Sidonia get into trouble. When the President of the European Union started to support the gathering of darkness, many European tycoons and even members of the royal family joined forces and formed a powerful force to impeach Jung and dissolve the European Union. The entire European Union Joint Conference was almost overturned. Jung and many other European Union leaders were muddle-headed. In the end, they could only vote to terminate the cooperation with the gathering of darkness. So far, only a few European families secretly supported the gathering of darkness and gave them a large amount of money, ships, and modern helicopters. And the European Union coalition army had ceased all activities. It was similar to the Marshall family's action against Jiang Tian in the United States. This is what it means to subdue an enemy without a fight. Master's move can save the lives of billions of entities. At this moment, Chen Yang, Huaqing Tian, and the others finally understood why Jiang Tian wanted to build a country instead of simply establishing a sect. Jiang Tian's schemes were far-sighted and could even be said to be flawless. He had seen a war a long time ago and had been fully prepared for it. The world wasn't as simple as one or the other. It was you and me, and you and me. By building a country, Jiang Tian was demonstrating a kind of cultivation civilization. This kind of civilization was destructive and could destroy cities and countries. But it was also constructive and advanced. The healing immortal village helped people with diseases, and many medicines could extend people's lives. Well, very well. So far, only the gathering of darkness can fight with us. Hearing this, Zhao Xueqing was relieved and smiled sarcastically. Maybe the blue storm of the United States will join us. If they really dare to come, the Tianqing sect will definitely make it so that they won't be able to return. That's right. We have many immortal state warriors and a half-step human deity. We are not afraid of the gathering of darkness. Huaqing Tian nodded in agreement. If we can't defeat them, we will retreat into the Zhou Tianyong formation. I don't believe that Nie Mingyuan can suppress the Tianqing school. Well, all sects in Tianjun on standby. Prepare for the first level of battle. Zhao Xueqing said. Yes. Below the stage, all the disciples were filled with murderous intent and were in high spirits. Chapter 776. It's a pity that the Kuelian system is not stable yet. Otherwise, when I stabilize the system, I'll smash it into pieces with my Kuelian. After the meeting, Zhang Chenzhen clenched his fists and said angrily. His eyes were red because of continuous debugging and experiments. 10 days later, Nie Mingyuan, the president of the Dark Parliament, asked his subordinates to send a letter of challenge to Tianqing School. He claimed that the purpose of the Dark Parliament was to reduce disputes and maintain world peace. He didn't want to see civilians in Sidonia die. He hoped that neither the Taiqing sect nor the Dark Parliament would use force from the secular world. He hoped that they would have a final showdown in North Bay of Sidoni to decide the ownership of Tianqing School's Taoist field. If the Dark Parliament won, Tianqing School would give up the Taoist field and all the assets in Sidoni. If they lost the final showdown, the Dark Parliament would be dissolved immediately and Tianqing School and Ms. Xiao Xueqing could do whatever they wanted with them. At the same time, the letter of challenge was published on the deep web and other major forums of the world. Bah, Nie Mingyuan is shameless. After reading the letter of challenge, Hua Qingtian cursed loudly. His hands are stained with the blood of the weak. He claims to maintain world peace and doesn't want to see civilians die. He has lost the support of the European Union and can't mobilize the power of the European Union coalition. Let's not be polite to him. Qin Yang said fiercely. When they come, we'll shoot them with rocket launchers. They won't even be able to find their teeth. No, agree with them. Zhao Xueqing pondered for a moment, then shook her head and said calmly, what he means is that if we use modern troops and weapons, they will also attack civilians in Sidoni. If we refuse them, we will not only give them a reason to attack us, but also lose the support of the people in Sidoni. In 3 days, Tianqing School and the Dark Parliament will fight to the death in North Bay of Sidoni. When the news came out, the world was in an uproar again. The emotions of many experts were quickly stirred. Tianqing School and the Covenant of Darkness, the two most powerful forces in the world, are going to war. How many years has it been since something like this happened? This could be said to be the most brilliant and magnificent battle in the past 500 years. People were so excited that their hands trembled and they jumped up and down. This is truly the rise of the cultivators, the era of great competition, the era of great competition. Some people raised their hands and shouted towards the sky. I must go and take a look. Don't miss it. To be able to witness the most glorious battle in the past 500 years, I have not lived in vain. Many powerful figures from the dark world rushed out from all over the world and rushed towards Sidoni. Only a dozen days had passed in the outside world, but a dozen years had passed in the Sword Tomb. These days, he could clearly feel that the magic power of the array formation was gradually weakening. Although the restriction at the entrance of the valley could stop ordinary people, it could no longer stop him and the Wolf King. Sometimes, they would go out on patrol to get some fresh air. On this day, Sidu Shao was practicing his swordsmanship in the snow outside the entrance of the sword mound. A treasured sword was driven by him and drew a bright streamer in the air, surpassing 3 times the speed of sound. Clang. This ordinary treasured sword directly penetrated an ice mountain that was more than a few hundred meters tall. It was 10 times more powerful than the green Suo sword. So that's how it is. The real flying sword is completely different from the sword manipulation technique that I have practiced before. Situ Shao laughed heartily. At this time, he had already practiced the 5 elements heaven-seizing sword to 70 to 80%, and he had a lot of understanding in his heart. In the final analysis, the sword manipulation technique in the world was all about using qi to manipulate the sword. At a higher level, the qi would be very thin, so thin that it would be difficult to perceive it with the naked eye and spiritual power. At the extreme level, one could also inject a large amount of one's own qi into the treasured sword. This qi could sense the circulation of one's own qi, and the attacks formed by the treasured sword were between spiritual power and qi. The real sword manipulation technique, on the other hand, used the divine sense that surpassed spiritual power to manipulate the sword. It turned out that every time Situ Shao used the green Suo sword, even with the help of the sword spirit, he was so tired that he would hum and hum. A large amount of genuine qi was consumed, and he almost vomited blood. But now, an ordinary treasured sword was not only much more powerful, but also did not consume the slightest bit of qi and spiritual power. It was like a second clone, and it was extremely mysterious. The most important thing was that its lethality and speed were far beyond any sword manipulation technique in the world. It doesn't consume qi and spiritual power. Luckily, Master Kong spared my life back then. Otherwise, I would have been exhausted to death. The more Situ Shao thought about it, the more he felt that Jiang Tian's strength was beyond his imagination. Yeah, this 5 elements heaven-seizing sword is already so powerful. I wonder how vast and magnificent the technique that Master cultivates is. That's right. According to the sword manipulation technique that Jiang Tian had taught him, the moon-worshipping Wolf King was gathering the power of the aurora. At this moment, he couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Suddenly, the two of them felt a surge of energy erupting from the sword catacomb. It rushed to the 9th heaven and stirred up the aurora in the sky, making it uneasy and restless. A breakthrough! The moon-worshipping Wolf King was so shocked by this horrifying energy that he jumped up. Green Ant! A soft shout came from the continuous palace in the depths of the sword catacomb, and it was clearly transmitted. Green Ant? It seems to be a flying sword of the Immortal of 9 Swords. Thinking of the Immortal of 9 Swords' holographic projection, that day, Sidu Shao couldn't help but scratch his head and murmur to himself with a strange expression, but we searched the entire sword catacomb and couldn't find it. At that time, the remnant soul of the Immortal of 9 Swords said that he had forged a total of 10 flying swords. Green Ant, Spring Thunder, Moon Soul, Luo Pe, Golden Crow, Demon Slayer, Imperial Wind, Falling Star, Dragon Scale and Black Snake. Except for the worst Black Snake sword, which had hit the head of the sacred battling ape Qi Aoshing and was taken away by him during the battle, the other 9 were hidden in the sword catacomb. Each of them had killed many seniors and had an earth-shattering power. They had killed countless monsters and could crush earth-level deities. But he had also made it clear. These 9 flying swords were real spirit artifacts. Those who didn't have good eyesight wouldn't be able to discover them. Only those who had reached the 3rd level of the Foundation establishment level and above could use them. But then, crack, there was a soft sound. A giant crack suddenly appeared on the lowest peak of the 9 mountains around the sword catacomb, and it started to shake violently. Oh my God, is this an earthquake? This isn't an earthquake zone. The moon-worshipping Wolf King exclaimed. Let's go inside. Master Kong is in seclusion. How can he withstand this kind of disturbance? Situ Shao panicked and flew inside on his flying sword. Jiang Tian was very powerful. But when a person was cultivating in seclusion, they would be completely unguarded. Even a finger would be able to poke them to death, let alone such a great earthquake. Don't worry. I'm fine. I'm taking these flying swords. Jiang Tian's indifferent voice was heard. What? The two of them stopped dead in their tracks. Then, they saw a shocking scene that they would never forget in their entire lives. The snow and ice on the mountain gradually fell off, revealing a jade-like green. Then, the entire 200-meter-high mountain shot into the sky like a missile launch. No, it should be said that it was like a carrier rocket launch. It rumbled and shot into the sky with earth-shattering noises. Oh my God! Is that a sword? The moon-worshipping Wolf King looked up and yelled. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This scene was simply too shocking. In front of such a huge sword that was over 100 meters long, he felt like an ant or a speck of dust. He was too small and not worth mentioning. Spring Thunder! Another low voice was heard, as if a divine emperor was giving orders to all living beings, as if a Buddha was giving a short speech. A 50-meter-tall mountain shot out a huge lightning bolt that was as thick as a human thigh. It was like thousands of lightning dragons circling around it, piercing into the sky. The two swords shot thousands of meters into the sky until they disappeared. They might even leave the atmosphere and reach outer space. Moon Soul. As the Moon Soul Sword Mountain rose into the sky, the aurora in a 20-kilometer radius above the sword catacomb was absorbed and the stars dimmed. Desolation. As the sword rose, an enormous spiritual pressure came crashing down like an avalanche, and it had the power to destroy everything in its path. Situ Zhao's face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. He stumbled backward and felt that his head was about to explode. The moon-worshipping Wolf King found a cave and hid in it. He hugged his head and howled. A Foundation establishment-level overlord would have his divine soul and divine sense destroyed when he saw the sword will. In the end, Jiang Tian yelled. The earth shook and snow danced in the air. The peerless swords that had been dormant for hundreds of years flew up into the sky like angry dragons waking up. If this sword hit someone, I'm afraid it would kill. Situ Xiao was speechless. What kind of person could withstand it? Turning into ashes, vaporizing, disappearing from this world in an instant? It was unimaginable. The 9 swords were like 9 dragons that flew up into the sky. It was enough to shock the world. Outside the atmosphere, under the cold, starry sky, in a milky white space station with the word NASA painted on it. My God, why is there a sword? An astronaut, who was drinking coffee and listening to rock music, suddenly jumped up from his chair in shock and pointed outside the window and exclaimed, "What sword? You mean that kind of cold weapon?" Next to him, another astronaut crossed his legs and sneered. Although the conditions of the space station were good, there were few entertainment programs and very little contact with the ground. In such an environment, people would often develop claustrophobia, and hallucinations were also possible. In fact, this job was similar to being in prison. Therefore, he didn't believe his colleagues' nonsense and thought that he was hallucinating. After all, it was too illogical. "What are you laughing at? I really saw a sword. It was a cold weapon, but it was super big, dozens of meters long." The astronaut who witnessed it stretched out his arms exaggeratedly and was so angry that he almost dropped his coffee cup. Chapter 777. Those experiments, observation of the Earth, and daily maintenance were really boring. It was not easy to make an earth-shattering discovery, but they did not believe it. Right, don't we have a video? Let's take a look at the video. The witness suddenly had an idea and turned on the video system to check. However, he didn't see a treasured sword. Instead, he saw a hazy gray shadow. What kind of cosmic ray is that? It's so big. The other astronauts were amazed and could not figure it out. As for Jiang Tian, he had already controlled the flying swords to fly back and shrink them to their normal size. Together with Little He, which was originally called the Black Serpent Sword, there were a total of 10 flying swords floating quietly in front of Jiang Tian. At this time, he had used his divine sense to erase the original divine sense imprint of the immortal of 9 swords and left his own. Suddenly, he had a feeling that he was connected to these flying swords by blood, and he could control them as if they were his arms. There are too few cultivation resources on Earth. With 10 flying swords that can travel thousands of kilometers, I think there are not many people who can challenge me. Jiang Tian thought for a while and patted the sky-devouring magic gourd, sending all the flying swords into it. In the end, the time acceleration formation had completely exhausted all of its magic power and collapsed. Then, Jiang Tian looked into his Qi and could not help but be happy. But I was lucky. Before the formation collapsed, I just condensed my Dan Tian and succeeded in foundation establishment. He was surprised to find that the boiling true essence in his Qi had undergone obvious changes. The red flame fortune elixirs refined by Jiang Tian, especially the foundation establishment elixir, actually contained a lot of fire-type medicinal power and energy. After swallowing, Jiang Tian's true essence and Qi were like burning fire, roasting and condensing. Jiang Tian still had a lingering fear from the previous severe pain. It was as if an ordinary person had thrown a fiery fire into his body, which was very torturous. Even though Jiang Tian had been cultivating for thousands of years and had experienced several breakthroughs and disasters, it was still difficult for him to bear. But as the medicinal power roasted, the boiling true yuan and Qi in his lower abdomen gradually condensed. The true yuan first became like liquid gold, then a mixture of solid and liquid. In the end, it forcibly formed a large block. Like a piece of golden soil, it merged with his Qi and continued to rise until it stabilized at his chest. At this time, his Qi was filled with powerful true essence particles and blocks. The golden light was brilliant, and it looked like a fertile field. This was the Danton of the Jindan. This was not the Dantian acupoint in traditional Chinese medicine, but the field that nurtured the Jindan and the foundation for the next step. This was also the foundation to truly embark on the path of cultivation. It was as if a solid foundation had been laid for a skyscraper. From now on, Jiang Tian was a true cultivator. Therefore, the condensation of a dantian within the body was also known as successful foundation establishment. Jiang Tian exhaled slowly. His expression turned calm as he slightly operated his dantian. Immediately, rumble. The feeling of his magical power skyrocketing and his supernatural powers being activated made him so comfortable that he almost cried out. At this time, Jiang Tian was immersed in a subtle and comfortable feeling. He could not help but operate the technique over and over again. After a few cycles, his spirit gradually wandered off. At this time, the mountain and peaks formed by the 9 flying swords had disappeared from the ground. Therefore, Sidu Shao and the Wolf King could clearly see a spirit that was identical to Jiang Tian leaping out of the golden lake between Jiang Tian's eyebrows. This divine soul emitted a dazzling golden light from the inside to the outside, like the Vajra-colored glaze or the golden body of a Buddha. This spirit was very fast. Step by step, it ascended into the sky. Conjuring a spell, it raised its hand and condensed a vast expanse of heaven and earth yuan qi into a long sword. Break! The divine soul let out a low growl and shot out a sword, shattering an ice mountain that was dozens of meters tall. This is Master Kang's spirit. It's actually so powerful? The Wolf King was dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. He, who had reached the top of the immortal state, knew too much about divine souls and had seen many of them. For example, the origin of the divine sword palace of Dongyang had formed a divine soul during the battle with Jiang Tian and wanted to escape. However, as long as it was a soul, it was just a weak spiritual force that would collapse at the slightest sign of disturbance. And it could only appear at night. Once it met the sun, it would be instantly annihilated and completely disappear. In particular, ordinary divine souls couldn't form physical attacks, let alone produce Dharma power. But it was already May and June. The polar night phenomenon in the Arctic had ended and the sun was shining brightly. But Jiang Tian's divine soul was like another him and was not afraid of the sunlight at all. What was more terrifying was that Jiang Tian's divine soul could perform divine powers and form physical attacks. If he hadn't seen the divine soul come out of Jiang Tian's mind with his own eyes, he would have thought that this divine soul avatar was Jiang Tian himself. This is the Sun God, also known as the primordial spirit. Situ Shao exclaimed in shock. According to the records of Taoism, the primordial spirit is independent and independent. It is called the primordial spirit. It is said that only sky immortals and perfected immortals can cultivate it. This kind of divine soul has self-consciousness and is not afraid of the sunlight. It can travel 100 miles in a day, just like a second avatar. It can also be reborn and form a body. Even if the body is destroyed, it won't be afraid at all. So powerful. The Moon Wolf King's eyes almost popped out. He felt that his vision had been broadened. Situ, you are quite knowledgeable. That Yang God avatar floated in front of Situ Shao and Situ Shao. Even though the two of them knew that it was Jiang Tian's Yang Soul avatar, they quickly kowtowed. Jiang Tian's Yang Soul gestured for the two of them to get up and smiled. The Yang Soul, also known as the primordial spirit, is an avatar outside the body. The avatar of the pure Yang body has a shape. The divine soul you are talking about is actually the Yin soul. It is formed by willpower or strong thoughts. It is a ghost with a shadow but no shape. Sometimes, when you sit in meditation, you will feel like you are going out to play. You can see things outside, but you can't take them back. This is the Yin soul traveling. When a mortal dies, his soul will dissipate without a place to stay. If there is resentment in his life, his soul will still exist for a certain period of time. There may be signs of the Yin soul appearing. At this time, Jiang Tian's original body was still breathing and circulating his spiritual energy. However, Jiang Tian's Yang soul avatar was still operating smoothly. His every movement was graceful and he spoke with assurance, just like a real person. It's amazing. When I read the records, I thought it was just a Taoist fantasy. It turns out that it is all true. Seeing this, Situ Xiao couldn't help but be shocked and respectful. We should go. Move the rest of the things in the sword tomb. The young soul avatar said calmly. Yes. Situ Xiao and Wolf King hurriedly bowed and agreed. The young soul avatar rose into the air again. In the ruins of the sword tomb, he gathered many spiritual herbs and great medicines with the other two and placed them in front of Jiang Tian's original body. After busying himself for half an hour, he flew into Jiang Tian's mind. At this time, Jiang Tian's eyes flashed. He stood up and said slowly, "We have been in the sword tomb for 4 or 5 months. I'm afraid that the Genyu Demon King, Blue Storm, and other opponents can't sit still anymore. I have to hurry to Sidoni." With that, he didn't use the flying sword. His body swayed and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he had already crossed the entire Sword Tomb Island and appeared more than 100 kilometers away. 3 days passed in a flash. Soon, the time for the final battle between the Covenant of Darkness and the Tianqing School arrived. This time, the deputy chairman of the Covenant of Darkness, Blood Ancestor Ali, took a fleet led by a cruiser called the Expedition. He led many blood ancestors, the Wolf King of the Grassland, Garl, and many immortal state warriors from the Dark World from England. They crossed the North Atlantic Ocean and headed toward the North Bay of Sidoni. On the shore of the North Bay, on a mountain called the Tide-Watching Mountain, the 4 spiritual generals of the Huaxia Long Formation gathered and waited for the battle. When the Covenant of Darkness was wreaking havoc in Huaxia, it was the overlords of the Tianqing School who helped. Now, they were returning the favor. On another mountain peak, Master Hongba of the Chinese Society of Singapore, Tan Jun, Li Jinju, and Song Jigang of the Fucking Gang were also there. Although they had not reached the immortal state and couldn't participate in this kind of battle, they were seriously concerned and needed to show their attitude. In addition, there were at least 1,000 overlords watching the battle on the mountain. Most of them were above the transcendent state and were comparable to grandmasters. There were kendo grandmasters in Japan, mixed martial arts masters in North America, pagan gods in the jungles of Africa, and so on. They claimed that they were there to watch the battle and wouldn't help either side. In fact, many of them were planning to take advantage of the situation. The real backbone of the Tianqing School was 3 kilometers away from the territorial waters, on a fleet led by the Taichu aircraft carrier. Zhao Xueqing, Huang Linger, Huaqing Tian, Wei Feilong, Zhao Yuankuan, Sasaki Haisha, and the other experts were wearing heavenly armor. They stood proudly on the deck, their eyes cold and filled with fighting spirit. As the fleet of the Covenant of Darkness approached, Red Sparrow put down the telescope and shouted with a serious face. "So many overlords are here. This time, the Tianqing School will not be able to withstand it." Each of the blood ancestors was beyond the immortal state, and many of them were mortal deities and saints. They had lived for a long time and had experienced many mysterious things. Their cultivation was unfathomable, and some of them had even reached the level of Holy Master or Earth-level deity. The blood ancestor that Tang Linglong had killed was the weakest among them. At that time, she used the god spirit Bonefinger dagger and caught him off guard. That was why she managed to hit him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to fight with the blood ancestor. Don't worry. Our Lady has learned from Master Kong. She is much more powerful than these blood-drinking monsters. Yi Zhantian was calm. The next moment, a serious look appeared on his face. The real threat is Nieming Yuan. I don't think he is here this time. Suddenly, there was a commotion. A civilian cruise ship was sailing from the south. A beam of golden light shot out from the cruise ship, pierced through the sky, and landed on HMS Expedition. The man was old and skinny. He was wearing a yellow monk robe and had a shiny bald head. His yellow eyebrows almost reached his shoulders. Tilid, the king of Tame Tao in Thailand. Back then, he was far stronger than Wang Chongyan and was on par with the Indian great master Ji Wu. Black Tortoise recognized this person and cried out involuntarily as if it had seen an evil ghost. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.